Chapter 28-27, 2827 Eavesdropping. 2827 Eavesdropping. Ling Han heaved a sigh. Hunyao was still the same Hunyao, and sure enough, she still liked to play and play. He still had to worry about her all the time. Ling Han gazed in the direction of Hao Jing's departure. A cold glint appeared in his eyes. It was because he felt an innate dislike for those who pursued his daughter that he had kept an eye on Hao Jing. However, he hadn't imagined that Hao Jing would be so audacious, not only coveting his daughter, but even coveting the empress. In fact, Hao Jing even had his eyes set on Ling Han's heavenly venerable seals. This Hao Jing is clearly aware of my strength. Thus, he didn't act rashly. Instead, he's requesting backup from this senior brother Luo or whatever. Luo Tongfang? I've heard of him before, he's a first-tier heavenly venerate. However, a first-tier clearly isn't powerful enough to rival me, so Luo Tongfang didn't directly come over. Instead, he's gone to look for some blood clay or whatnot. So this thing can wound me or even kill me? Ling Han speculated in his mind. Even though he was brimming with confidence, it wouldn't make sense for him to dive headfirst into danger. Should I capture him now? Hunyao asked in excitement. No, we'll wait for senior brother Luo to arrive before capturing them together, Ling Han said. He unleashed his divine sense across the entire Ling city. No matter how well a first-tier heavenly venerate concealed their aura, he would still be able to immediately detect their presence. Once a heavenly venerate became serious, who could pick on them? For years later, Ling Han suddenly felt something tug at his mind. He saw a heavenly venerate entering the city. His disguise was extremely well done, and he had transformed into a speck of dust that lay on a cart of goods entering the city. Only after 2 hours or so did he transform into an ascending origin tier cultivator and walk toward the city west. A cold smile stretched across Ling Han's face. Hao Jing would stay in a tea house in the city's west for a brief while every day. It was clear that the two of them had agreed to meet up there. Ling Han silently made his way over with Hunyao. Sure enough, this heavenly venerate quickly met up with Hao Jing, entering a private room. They were extremely careful, and they set up a restrictive barrier around the room, preventing their voices from leaking out. Under normal circumstances, even fifth-tier heavenly venerates would be unable to eavesdrop on their discussion. This was unless they forcefully barged in. At that point, however, it couldn't be regarded as eavesdropping anymore. However, it couldn't be helped that it didn't work, because Ling Han had kept an eye on Hao Jing the entire time. Earlier, he had already made preparations around the entire tea house. Thus, even though the two of them had erected a barrier, this had been done on top of Ling Han's previous setup. Thus, it was naturally a futile move. Of course, this was also because Ling Han was far more powerful than them. Otherwise, ignoring Hao Jing, the first-tier heavenly venerate would have definitely noticed something wrong. Anyhow, the two of them were extremely at ease as they began their discussion. Junior brother Hao, it's been quite a few years, and you've already advanced to the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier. When Master exits his seclusion, he'll definitely be delighted, the first-tier heavenly venerate said. He was none other than Luo Tongfang, senior brother Luo. Hao Jing chuckled before replying, thanks for your congratulations, senior brother Luo. However, a pseudo-heavenly venerate is still only a pseudo. There's no way I can compare to senior brother Luo. Look at you. After becoming a pseudo-heavenly venerate, will advancing to the first tier be far away? Luo Tongfang said with a smile. How wishy-washy, are they still not going to talk about the proper matters? Hunyao couldn't help but grumble. Her small fist was tightly clenched, and she continued, aren't they afraid of their audiences complaining about drawn-out dialogues? This will cause a mass uproar. Ling Han patted her head, and said, have some patience. They could speak freely without having to worry about being overheard by the two people. Sure enough, the other duo moved on to the main topic after a short while. You've obtained it? Hao Jing asked, his voice slightly tense and anxious. It was clear that he cared a lot about this matter. Heh, you pestered me time and time again, so how could I fail? Luo Tongfang said with a chuckle. However, is it really necessary to make such a scene against a first tier? Hao Jing shook his head, saying, Senior brother Luo, you definitely can't underestimate Ling Han. This is an extraordinary person. Even though he's only at the first tier, he can rival those at the third tier. He's definitely a freak. For real? Luo Tongfang asked in suspicion. A first tier being able to rival a third tier? Was there anything more preposterous than this in the world? Senior brother Luo, you were cultivating in seclusion to reach the first tier before, so it's understandable that you're not up to date with all the recent events, Hao Jing said with a nod. However, I can say with absolute certainty that Ling Han's freakishness is above even my understanding. Luo Tongfang nodded in understanding. Even though he was still doubtful, he knew that Hao Jing wasn't someone to exaggerate matters. Then, will this blood clay be enough to contain him? After hearing all this, it was his turn to become anxious. A cold smile spread across Hao Jing's face. This is the product of a fourth-tier heavenly Venerate being taken down by the attack of hysteria. His entire body transformed into a puddle of blood clay, and this is something that possesses a corrosive ability that even my father is extremely afraid of. In other words, even fifth-tier heavenly Venerates can be affected. Thus, killing a first-tier will be as easy as a flick of the hand. Moreover, as long as a correct amount is used, this blood clay can riddle a heavenly Venerate with disease and pain. They have to resist this with all their power, rendering them powerless against others. Luo Tongfang shook his head, saying, Junior brother, how are you still unable to control your desire and lust for women? Otherwise, your accomplishments would have surpassed mine long ago. Hao Jing chuckled upon hearing this, saying, Senior brother, if one does nothing but cultivate, what joy is to be had even if you have a limitless lifespan. After we kill Ling Han, you take care of extracting his soul and refining out the heavenly venerable seals. I'll be in charge of rescuing the others. That girl Ling, she will definitely be extremely grateful toward me, yet she won't even guess that her kidnapped mother would have already become my slave, a slave for me to order around and toy with. There was a gleam in Hao Jing's eyes. Luo Tongfang wore an expression of disdain. In fact, he had a very low opinion of this junior brother who had his mind set on nothing but female beauty. However, who told him to be his master's only son? When shall we act? He asked. As soon as possible, Hao Jing replied. I've comprehensively become part of the Ling clan now, so no one will suspect me at all. They won't imagine that I'll poison their food. Huh? They're already heavenly Venerates, yet they still need to eat? Luo Tongfang asked in surprise. Don't you know? They're a family of gluttons. Outside, Ling Han was already rendered speechless. Normally, people would refer to him as a demon or a freak, but glutton? Sigh. However, Niu roared with laughter, saying, Niu is indeed a glutton. Her expression then immediately became cold, and she said with killing intent, Ling Han, let's go and kill those two baddies. Ling Han nodded in agreement. Sure thing. He had only stayed put because he had wanted to wait for Luo Tongfang to arrive. Now that they were both together, and now that they had revealed their intentions, there was naturally no need for Ling Han to hold back anymore. Hao Jing and Luo Tongfang were still discussing the fine details of their plan when they heard a knock on the door. The two of them exchanged a surprised glance. Who was it? I'll go, Luo Tongfang said as he walked over to answer the door. The door creaked open, revealing a young man and an indescribably beautiful young girl. You are? He asked. He was still disguised as an ascending origin tier cultivator at this moment, so the aura that he exuded wasn't especially powerful. However, Hao Jing could see the visitors clearly, and his expression involuntarily underwent a drastic change. Ling Han, he stammered. He was just discussing how to kill Ling Han, yet his target had suddenly appeared in the doorway. How could he not be shocked? Boom! Luo Tongfang immediately unleashed his cultivation, with his vast aura as a first tier instantly sweeping into the surroundings like a chaotic tidal wave. Chapter 28 Blood Clay. 28 Blood Clay. Ling Han, is it? I've been looking forward to meeting you for a long time, Luo Tongfang said. He had recovered his aura as a first tier, and he was speaking with extreme confidence at this moment. Heavenly Venerates, which of them wasn't a supreme prodigy? With both being at the first tier, who would be weaker than the other? Thus, even though Luo Tongfang approved of Hao Jing's method to poison the Lings using blood clay, he was still an extremely proud person at heart. He was confident that he could suppress Ling Han even without resorting to such underhanded methods. Peng. However, Hao Jing's next move was something that Luo Tongfang hadn't anticipated at all. He directly blasted a hole in the wall before shooting out and fleeing into the distance. Luo Tongfang was absolutely infuriated. Hao Jing's actions were a clear sign that he didn't believe in Luo Tongfang's ability to defeat Ling Han. In fact, they implied that Luo Tongfang didn't even possess the right to rival Ling Han. It was because of this that Hao Jing had fled so quickly. Fuck. Luo Tongfang was infuriated to death, and he glared at Ling Han with a baleful expression. He imagined the moment that he decapitated Ling Han and tossed his head before Hao Jing. Just what expression would Hao Jing wear? Oi, don't let your mind wander, Ling Han said with a smile. He didn't pursue Hao Jing, because Hunyao had already gone after him. Could a pseudo-heavenly Venerate flee from the clutches of a second-tier heavenly Venerate? Did they think that everyone was Ling Han? Ling Han, at the same cultivation level, Luo Tongfang, won't lose to anyone. Luo Tongfang said with confidence. Oh, Ling Han replied with a nod. Do you have any last words? Die. Luo Tongfang roared as he unleashed an attack. Wang. A heavenly venerable seal immediately pulsated in his hand. This was one of the more widely known 7 seals, and it could raise his power 4-fold. At the same time, he channeled a secret technique, with a bloody wolf materializing behind him and howling at the sky, summoning a bloody moon that radiated with a boundless sense of desolation and misery. Boom! The blood wolf swallowed the moon, and Luo Tongfang also charged over at the same time, with his right hand transforming into a wolf paw as it shot over with a destructive might. Ling Han shook his head, and responded with a casual swat. Paw! This strike was unstoppable, and Luo Tongfang's outstretched arm was the first to shatter. Ling Han's palm then struck his chest, its explosive might instantly crushing it into pieces. Luo Tongfang wore an expression of utter shock, awash with disbelief as he stared at Ling Han. Peng! His entire body collapsed into pieces, completely dismembered. They were both first-tier heavenly Venerates, yet he was actually unable to withstand a single strike from Ling Han. He finally understood why Hao Jing fled with such resoluteness upon seeing Ling Han. This was because he knew that they were no match for Ling Han. The gulf between them was like the gulf between heaven and earth. His expression was spiritless and dazed. They were both at the first tier, so how was he so much weaker than Ling Han? Ling Han naturally wouldn't care about Luo Tongfang's thoughts. He quickly retrieved a spatial celestial tool from Luo Tongfang's body before examining it with his divine sense and extracting a jade vial. He felt an instinctive apprehension toward the matter inside the vial. This was something that he definitely didn't want to touch. This was the flesh of a heavenly Venerate that had been corroded by hysteria. Ling Han carefully unplugged the vial, only to see wisps of black air drifting out and forming all sorts of shapes. However, these shapes were all of poisonous creatures such as spiders and centipedes. He squatted down next to Luo Tongfang's decapitated head. With his power suppressing Luo Tongfang was completely unable to knit his body back together and heal his wounds. Get that thing away from me! Luo Tongfang cried in astonishment, his face filled with terror. He appeared even more tense and terrified than when he had been blasted into pieces by Ling Han just then. By the looks of it, this thing was truly extraordinary. This was clear just by looking at Luo Tongfang's terrified expression. Ling Han chuckled and said, "Since you're so terrified of it, then why did you bring it all the way here? And you even wanted to feed it to me. Say, even though I'm a glutton, I'm not an absolute fool, am I? Did you really think I would eat this?" If Hao Jing truly acted out his plan, he would have definitely used some method to cover the aura of this thing so that no one could notice any problem. Of course, he definitely didn't dare to say this. "Friend, I was also deceived by others, so please spare me this one time," he begged as he clenched his teeth. As a heavenly Venerate, it took him a great deal of courage to utter these words, with his face bright red with shame. Ling Han involuntarily laughed, saying, "Others bring small presents from hundreds of miles away, the present trifling but the thoughts and feelings deep. Meanwhile, you've brought me poison from tens of thousands of kilometers away. What should this be classified as?" Luo Tongfang was rendered speechless. Right now, his only saving grace was that the main culprit was Hao Jing, while he had only been responsible for bringing some things over. "I genuinely didn't know about my junior brother's plans at all," he said. Ling Han poured out a bit of the content from the vial, the black blood clay. He then spread it on one of Luo Tongfang's arms. Theoretically speaking, the arm of a heavenly Venerate would remain healthy and undecaying even if it were severed. However, after coming into contact with the blood clay, it instantly started to decay and rot before eventually transforming into a puddle of blood. How poisonous! Ling Han looked at Luo Tongfang, simply shaking his head without speaking. "Ling Han, Niu has captured him." Peng! Hu Niu jumped in, a person in her hand. It was none other than Hao Jing. How could a pseudo-heavenly Venerate possibly escape from a second-tier heavenly Venerate? Pa! Hu Niu tossed Hao Jing to the ground. Ling Han smiled and said, "The first time I saw you, I said that good times don't last long. By the looks of it, my prediction was indeed correct." Hao Jing gritted his teeth, vexation on his face. He didn't know where he had gone wrong. In all these years, his behavior had been normal and unsuspicious. He hadn't left any flaw at all. He wore a wry and aggrieved smile as he asked, "How did you see through me?" Ling Han didn't keep any secrets, and he explained the entire process. Hao Jing was almost angered to death. He had actually lost to Ling Han's love for his daughter. "You daughter-doting freak. Your daughter is already a celestial king, yet you're still so worried about her?" He was filled with bitter resentment. It wasn't he who had made a mistake, and it wasn't that he was careless. Instead, it was Ling Han who was a fucking daughter-doting freak. It was because of this that Ling Han had coincidentally noticed something off about him. He was filled with resentment. Utter resentment. There's no need to feel so vexed and aggrieved. Even if you weren't targeting my darling daughter, did you really think that a first-tier and a pseudo-heavenly Venerate could defeat 3 heavenly Venerates? Moreover, the 3 heavenly Venerates are at the 3rd tier and 2nd tier, Ling Han said with a shake of his head. Hao Jing had truly been dreaming. This blood clay was indeed very impressive. However, would it be any easy task to poison him with it? "I admit defeat." Hao Jing hung his head, and said, "What do you want from me?" Ling Han was astonished. "You really believe I will spare you if you give me something in exchange?" Hao Jing humphed, and said, "My father is Hao Tianjun, a 5th-tier heavenly Venerate. If you kill me, my father will find and kill you no matter where you flee and hide." Ling Han pondered for a moment before murmuring, "Have I killed the son of a 5th-tier heavenly Venerate before?" After a moment, he shook his head, and said, "I've killed far too many people, so I genuinely can't recall. No matter, after killing you, I would have definitely killed the son of a 5th-tier heavenly Venerate." "You?" Hao Jing was astounded. This wasn't anything to be proud of, so why was Ling Han acting as if it were? He hurriedly said, "Aren't you afraid of my father seeking revenge?" "Heh, even if I were afraid, do you think I'd forgive a vermin who targeted my family?" Ling Han said with a shake of his head. "Trash like you is better off dying early and reincarnating early." Pung! With a single punch, Hao Jing was instantly smashed into minced meat. Chapter 28-29, 28-29 The world has immersed in chaos. 28-29 The world has immersed in chaos. Luo Tongfang was covered in cold sweat, though it was only his head now that could sweat. Hao Jing had been killed just like that, so could he be spared? He was a great heavenly Venerate, a being that even the heavens had to respect, yet now his life was in the hands of another, and could be decided with just a single thought, so how could he not panic? Whatever dangers he had faced in the past, he had known that he would have been able to live through them. As long as he still had his strength, there would be hope. Yet now, he did not have the slightest idea as to what to do, and could only wait till death took him. He did have some backbone, though, and knowing that there was no way Ling Han would spare his life, he simply chose not to beg for mercy. Ling Han delivered a casual palm strike, and Luo Tongfang's head was also smashed. This kind of man naturally could not be spared. Sigh, nothing to play with again. Hunyo pouted. Ling Han patted her head. There are many more things that are fun to play with. We'll find something else in the future. Ling Han, let's go and have a baby. Hunyo's eyes shone brightly, and dragged Ling Han off with her without letting him get a word in. On the next day, Ling Han told the empress about what happened, which naturally caused the empress to fly into a thunderous fury, and she wanted nothing more than to further torture Hao Jing's corpse. Meanwhile, Ling Shi was kept in the dark. She went back to the martial academy alone. As for Hao Jing, Ling Han told her that the former had long since left, and would not be going back with her so that the little girl would not accidentally have a slip of the tongue. Hao Jing's father is still in seclusion, but when he comes out of seclusion, he will definitely seek revenge, bewitching Maiden Rose said. The empress said, with the power of a heavenly Venerate, added with the link of a bloodline relation, he should very easily be able to find his way here. Ling Han nodded. We should leave again. It was fine. In the first place, this Ling city was built to show Hao Jing, and Ling Han had no plans to stay here for long at all. Hence, he sent out a missive, and they set out again a month later, heading somewhere else. This time, Ling Han really settled down. He'd found a very peaceful, quiet place, surrounded by beautiful mountains and rivers, with picturesque scenery. He cultivated here for over 100,000 years, and became restless again. Ling Han's progress was too slow if he was cultivating so peacefully like this. Who knew how much time he would need to reach the 7th tier like this? He did not sense any waves coming from his clones, and it was really extremely boring. Hence, he, the empress, and Hunyo set out, going off to find the large black dog. This large black dog was great at making trouble, and perhaps there would be something fun going on with him. The three of them first went to the martial academy, and met Ling Jinxue. After they had some father-son talk, Ling Han asked about the whereabouts of the large black dog. It was truly coincidental. The large black dog was looking for Ling Han as well, but he did not know where he should go, so he was simply waiting here instead. Damn dog, if you are deliberately waiting for me, it must be for nothing good, isn't it? Ling Han asked. Not only is it nothing good, practically something major has happened, and the world is almost doomed. The large black dog jumped up and down. What is it? Even if the heavens are falling down on us, wouldn't there be someone taller that would keep them aloft? Ling Han asked laughingly. Don't remind me. Now, it is these taller guys that are causing trouble. The large black dog sighed. Tell me in more detail. Ling Han's expression also became serious. It is all because the threat from hysteria is removed. Now, the selfish, evil nature in everyone's bones has been exposed, the large black dog said. Ling Han glanced at the damn dog. Are you talking about yourself? The large black dog gave him the middle finger, and then said, without an external threat, what is left is naturally only internal strife. Previously, there were already supreme prodigies that had disappeared for no reason, but now it has become worse. A considerable number of heavenly venerates have directly allied together, publicly killing other heavenly venerates and stealing their heavenly venerable seals. Ling Han was finally shocked at this, and exclaimed, "Something like that actually happened? Aren't they afraid at all?" The 7th-tier heavenly venerates were all at the realm battlefield, but there were still other 6th-tier heavenly venerates like Zhou Heng, Chu Hao, and Lin Xiaoyang. Would they allow something like this to happen? What would they be afraid of? Do you know? It was a 6th-tier heavenly venerate that started this. The large black dog shook his head. Who was it? The heavenly venerate 10,000 shadows, the large black dog replied. This old geezer gathered a large group of people, and they slaughtered other heavenly venerates as they liked. He seems to be certain that those 7th-tier heavenly venerates would not be able to extract themselves. Now, everyone is afraid for themselves, and a great many heavenly venerates have been forced to form alliances. Some forces have even begun to hunt down other heavenly venerates just like the 10,000 Shadows Alliance. Grandpa Dog was in such a rush to find you because I wanted to tell you that you would definitely become a target because you possess more than one heavenly venerable seal. You must be extremely careful, the large black dog said very solemnly. Ling Han nodded. He could freely traverse through the dimensions, and this was his greatest trump card. However, this trump card could not be used freely. If he encountered hysteria, that would be even more terrifying than meeting a 7th tier. Ling Han, should we also cozy up to someone powerful? The large black dog suggested. We can't trust others, but there is definitely no problem with Zhou Heng, Chu Hao, and the others, so why don't we go and find them? Ling Han thought for a while, and then said, I do indeed have to meet with Zhou Heng and the other seniors and find out what they think about this matter. The trio set out together along with the large black dog, heading for the ancestral grounds of the Lin clan. They didn't know about Zhou Heng and Chu Hao, but Lin Xiaoyang should be standing guard there. When they arrived at the Lin clan, they could see that it was heavily guarded, as if they were faced with a great enemy. Who goes there? Immediately, someone shouted at Ling Han. Ling Han. I have come especially to meet with Lord Lin Xiaoyang, Ling Han said. After a while, a man streaked out from the mountains, and landed in front of Ling Han. He took a close look at Ling Han and his group, and only then did he clasp his hands in greeting. Lord Ling, please do not fault me for my rudeness, but it is not an ordinary time now, and I have no choice but to be careful. Ling Han nodded. I understand. Even as powerful as the Lin clan was, they had to be on such high alert. It was clear proof just how chaotic the world had become. Their group was invited into the Lin clan, and not long afterwards, Lin Piaoxue appeared, taking them to meet Lin Xiaoyang. After so many years, she, too, had advanced to the 2nd tier. Her progress was extremely fast. Greetings, Lord Lin. When they saw Lin Xiaoyang, everyone clasped their hands in greeting. Lin Xiaoyang nodded. I know why you have come. Milord, we all suspect that hysteria has deliberately created this energy storm, causing us to kill each other. Then, why do you not stop all this from happening? Ling Han asked. The large black dog hurriedly signaled at him with his eyes. This was a 6th tier elite, was he someone that you could demand answers from? Lin Xiaoyang did not treat this as insubordination. He sighed. Do you know just how many 6th tiers there are in the world in total? Ling Han's eyes narrowed involuntarily. How many? A total of 307, Lin Xiaoyang replied. Though I, junior brother Zhou, and junior brother Chu are coordinating with our full efforts, the mere power of just the 3 of us is completely not enough to end this internal strife. Then, there must be someone that is fanning the flames. Otherwise, this kind of situation could not have just appeared arbitrarily, Ling Han said. Would it be that heavenly venerate 10,000 shadows? Lin Xiaoyang shook his head. We have also gone to find 10,000 shadows, but according to the information that we have obtained, 10,000 shadows is actually not the main culprit. For the moment, the person who is manipulating things from within the shadows is still concealed deeply. Could it be that this person has secretly collaborated with hysteria, and become its lackey? Ling Han was extremely surprised. To be able to cause such great trouble, the culprit had to be a 6th tier, at least, but was it possible for a 6th tier elite not to have even this bit of awareness, and actually cooperate with hysteria? Chapter 2830, 2830 Alliance Through Marriage? 2830 Alliance Through Marriage? Lin Xiaoyang shook his head. He was also very confused by this. Logically speaking, anyone with the slightest bit of sense should know that working together with hysteria would be making a deal with the devil. The final result would definitely mean tragedy for himself as well, because hysteria's goal was to devour the entire Genesis world and replace it, becoming that supreme existence capable of controlling everything. But if there had been no one stoking the flames, would things have progressed to this extent? Even 6th tiers like Lin Xiaoyang, Zhou Hang, and Chu Hao could not find this main culprit, so what more could Ling Han do? The 6th tier elites that he knew were only limited to Lin Xiaoyang and the others. He could not suspect the 3 of them, right? The outside world is chaotic, so just stay here for the moment, Lin Xiaoyang said. Ling Han gave it some consideration, and accepted Lin Xiaoyang's kind offer. The world outside was indeed chaotic, and without the appearance of any heavenly venerable seals, there was no need for him to run here and there, so what did it matter where he cultivated? Thank you, Senior. Ling Han moved, and relocated everyone from Ling City to here. He also found some means to inform the Rain Emperor and the others, who were still roaming around on their travels. When everyone arrived, they built a new city in the vicinity of the Lin clan. It felt good to benefit from the protection and favor of a more powerful supporter. Though this place was still more than 5,000 kilometers away from Lin clan, it was completely within the Lin clan's range of protection, and was even in the central area at that. Hence, who would dare to attack them? Even if everyone was certain that there was not a single 7th tier heavenly venerate that could extract himself and return from the realm battlefield, as long as a 7th tier heavenly venerate was still alive, who would dare to touch their place of enlightenment? After everything was settled, Ling Han began to cultivate in seclusion. Since he could not obtain more heavenly venerable seals, he could only use a great amount of time to improve the rate of his cultivation. Time passed very quickly, and soon 100 million years had passed. For heavenly venerates, 100 million years was actually not very long. In fact, this actually could only be considered just a slightly longer period of time even for celestial kings. However, a great many things had happened in these 100 million years. A great number of heavenly venerates were slaughtered because heavenly venerable seals caused a large-scale hunting down of heavenly venerates. To say nothing of 4th tiers and 5th tiers, even 6th tier heavenly venerates were in danger. This was no false alarm. There were at least 3 6th tier heavenly venerates that had been besieged and killed, dying helplessly. When the news spread out, the whole world was shaken. What was a 6th tier? Aside from the 7th tier, there was no one stronger than them, and now those 7th tiers were all fighting against hysteria in the realm battlefield. Under such circumstances, even 6th tiers had died, so how could this not be shocking? No one knew exactly how those 3 6th tiers had died. Some deduced that they had died because they had been ganged up on by over a dozen other 6th tiers, and some guesses were even wilder, saying that there had to have been a 7th tier that had secretly taken action, and that was what had led to those 3 6th tiers not even having the chance to flee. There had never been any solution to this. Hence, this caused all the great heavenly venerates to be even more uneasy, fearing for themselves. According to incomplete statistics, the number of heavenly venerates that had died in the last 100 million years had reached around 20%, which was many more than the wartime casualties at the realm battlefield. Zhou Hang and Chu Hao had also relocated their own clansmen here. The 3 great 6th tier elites were standing guard here together. At other times, a single 6th tier would be enough to suppress the ages, but the present circumstances were different. Even 6th tiers would have to gather together to protect one another because other 6th tiers had already joined an alliance, and solitary 6th tiers would only be eliminated one by one. In truth, even with the combined forces of 3 great 6th tier heavenly venerates, it was not all that safe. In other heavenly venerable tier alliances, the number of 6th tier heavenly venerates was at least 7 or 8 and more than a dozen at most. Hence, Lin Xiaoyang, Chu Hao, and Zhou Heng were still looking for new allies. However, the three of them were apprentice brothers, so they naturally could trust each other completely, but mere trust was a hard barrier to overcome if they wanted to take in a fourth person into their alliance. Moreover, other 6th tiers would also find it very hard to trust the three of them. After all, the three of them were a unit, so newcomers would fear that the three of them would turn on and screw them over with their combined efforts. Precisely because of this, Lin Xiaoyang and the others were still looking for allies after 100 million years had passed. Ling Han came out of seclusion, and after finding out about the details of the situation, he began another extended period of cultivation in seclusion. He did not like to live under someone else's protection, and there was only one thing that could ensure being able to have peace and safety in this chaotic world: strength. At the beginning, Ling Han would come out of seclusion once every 200 to 300 million years, and then over 1 billion years, to find out what the situation was. However, the feedback he obtained every time was more or less the same: there was another great number of heavenly venerates that had been slaughtered. It was as if heavenly venerates had become common vegetables that could be reaped at will. Thankfully, with the combined guard of the three great 6th tiers, added with the intimidation of Lin Luo, a 7th tier, it was extremely safe here all this while. There had not been one person that attacked them. However, no one knew how much longer this safety and peace could last. After over 10 billion years, Ling Han finally advanced his cultivation level to the late stage of the 1st tier. He firmed his resolve. In his next period of seclusion, he would not come out unless he had attained the 2nd tier. 1 billion years, 5 billion years, 10 billion years. Time passed swiftly, and in a flash, more than 20 billion years had already passed. Ling's city had long since developed, and the Rain Emperor, Yi, and the other elites had also returned one after another. Afterwards, even Jiuwu, Hua Furong, and Shi Chanzi had joined Ling's city. After all, they all came from the celestial realm, so they naturally would come together in the face of danger. Ling Han had been in seclusion all this while, which made the empress and Hunyou feel very bored, so they, too, began their own seclusion. Hence, after the passing of many generations, the newer generations did not know that there were such people like Ling Han and the empress at all. They only knew heavenly venerates like the Rain Emperor, Jiuwu, the large black dog, and the others. Just at this time, great news spread out. The Rong clan and Ning clan would be joining in alliance with the Lin clan, Zhou clan, and Chu clan. The ancestor of the Rong clan, Rong Tianyu, and the ancestor of the Ning clan, Ing Jiuyang, were both 6th tier elites. Once they allied together with Lin Xiaoyang and the others, their strength would definitely greatly increase, which would greatly improve their level of security. Rong Yang, a 4th tier heavenly venerate, the son of Rong Tianyu, had cultivated for 7 epochs, advancing from the celestial king tier to heavenly venerable tier, and then attaining 4th tier. Though he was not as heaven-defying as Lin Youlian and Xian Chihu, he was frighteningly steady, and had similarly shown his astonishing natural talent in cultivation. And now, Rong Yang was here on behalf of his father, visiting the Lin clan to discuss the details of their alliance. Ling's city could just barely be considered a part of Lin clan, so they naturally had heard of this as well. It is said that Rong Yang would marry Lin Piaoxue and affirm their alliance through matrimony. Hiss, celestial maiden Piaoxue is going to marry? Heavens, I am about to collapse. What are you collapsing for? Even if Lady Lin Piaoxue does not marry Rong Yang, don't tell me that she would marry you instead? Fuck, can't I even think about it? This news from afar had already reached Ling's city, causing many people to discuss it spiritedly. The addition of a new 6th tier heavenly venerate as an ally was shocking news. And amidst these heated discussions, a young man had also arrived at Ling's city. His name was Rong Xinkuan. I heard that the master of Ling's city, Ling Han, has obtained a heavenly venerable seal before? Rong Xinkuan asked the person beside him. If Ling Han was present, he would be able to recognize this man immediately. Jiuwu heavenly venerate. Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate nodded. In the realm battlefield, Ling Han has indeed obtained a Heavenly Venerable seal. When he said these words, a sliver of cruelty flashed in his eyes. Chapter 2831, 2831 The Arrogant Rong Xinkuan. 2831 The Arrogant Rong Xinkuan. Among those Heavenly Venerates that originated from the Celestial Realm, it was Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate who had accomplished the least. Wulu had almost reached the second tier in the Celestial Realm, and he had shot sky high after coming to the Flaming Frost Realm, having advanced to the fourth tier not too long ago. After all, while the Celestial Realm was indeed small, those able to attain first tier in the Celestial Realm were actually all prodigies of the highest tier. Green Flames was only slightly weaker, and had long since reached peak stage third tier. It was possible that he would break through at any moment. Meanwhile, Sealed Emotion was even more domineering, having actually cultivated a Heavenly Venerable seal that was his own. Though his present cultivation level was not as high as Wu Li's, he might be able to surpass him in the future despite his slower start. It was even possible that his final accomplishment could be the fifth tier. At present, the Karmic Life Heavenly Venerable had just advanced to the third tier, but he had started from the Celestial King tier. Being able to become a Heavenly Venerate in such a short period of time, the amount of strength he had was imaginable. As for Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate, he had long since advanced to the third tier, but after so many years, he was still stuck in the early stage of the third tier, and did not improve much at all. In comparison, he paled despondently. It was turbulent times now, and Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate could not mind his own business and stay away from trouble, so he could only lower himself to join under the banner of Rong Tianyu. Originally, it would have been very, very hard for him to cross paths with Ling Han again, but who would have imagined that Rong Tianyu would actually ally with the Lin clan? Hence, he also had the good luck to come along with the group of representatives this time. Rong Xinkuan was Rong Yang's cousin. He was far from being as freakish as Rong Yang, but with his powerful background, he had also cultivated to the height of ninth heaven. His personality was quite self-centered. After Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate arrived at Lin clan, and found out that Ling Han was nearby, an idea came to him, and he began to egg Rong Xinkuan on. What kind of person was Rong Xinkuan? He was completely self-centered, and thinking that his uncle was a sixth-tier elite, practically invincible in this world, he naturally considered everyone else below him. He did not dare to trifle with those like the Lin clan and Chu clan, but what was the Ling clan worth? The strongest among them was only a second-tier Heavenly Venerate, so how could he possibly care? He only had to send out Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate, and that would be enough to conquer all of them. He wanted to snatch Ling Han's Heavenly Venerable seal, and hand it over to Rong Yang to gain the favor of this cousin of his. After all, he knew that he was far less important than Rong Yang in Rong Tianyu's heart, so he naturally had to work hard to gain his cousin's favor. Who knew, perhaps great luck might fall on him, and he would be able to step into Heavenly Venerable tier, right? Hence, with Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate egging him on, he came. Rong Xinkuan crossed his arms behind him, and strode in front, while Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate followed closely behind. All this while, he stayed half a step behind him, which made Rong Xinkuan very pleased. What he did not know was, with how overwhelmingly proud a Heavenly Venerate was, how could he possibly bow his head in front of a ninth heaven? Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate was merely using him, and his purpose was naturally to have Rong Xinkuan to stand out with Rong Xinkuan's arrogance. Added with Ling Han's temper, the result would definitely be exceedingly terrible. Who knew, this idiot could be directly killed. At that time, Rong Yang would definitely interfere. Was a fourth-tier Heavenly Venerate still not enough to suppress a mere Ling city? Worse come to worst, even if Rong Yang was unable to deal with Ling city, something only had to happen to him, and a sixth tier would be angered. Ling Han would definitely be killed. Ling Han's location was naturally no secret, and was easily found out just by asking anyone. Hence, Rong Xinkuan and Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate soon located him. Rong Xinkuan revealed a smile of disdain. He strode forwards, heading for the main doors. "Sir, Who are you looking for? There were naturally guards at the entrance into Ling Manor, and they immediately asked Rong Xinkuan. Because Ling Han very much disliked overbearing, condescending behavior, the servants of Ling Manor were very polite, and would not act arrogant just because there were 3 heavenly venerates in residence. Yet Rong Xinkuan did not acknowledge them at all. Thinking that he was the nephew of a 6th-tier heavenly venerate, he thought that everyone in the world should treat him respectfully. Hence, he merely glanced condescendingly at the guard, and then demanded, "Tell Ling Han to come out and receive me on bent knee." When the guard heard this, he was instantly outraged. It was true that the servants of the Ling clan did not have the bad habit of being overbearing and arrogant, but they also did not have the habit of letting someone else trample all over them. Who did not know what kind of temper Ling Han had? As long as his own people had no fault, he would fully support them, and would show no fear no matter whom he was facing. Moreover, Rong Xinkuan directly insulted Ling Han from the moment he opened his mouth this time, so how could this guard not feel furious? He immediately drew out a spear, aimed straight for Rong Xinkuan, and said menacingly, "Immediately apologize, and withdraw your previous words. A mere servant actually dares to make demands of me?" Rong Xinkuan scoffed. He stretched out his hand to suppress that guard. The guard hurriedly countered, but he was only an ascending origin tier, so how could he possibly match a 9th heaven? Pa! Rong Xinkuan's power took the form of a giant black hand that grabbed that guard. "Beg for mercy, and I can spare your life," Rong Xinkuan declared arrogantly. "Tui." Yet that guard spat at Rong Xinkuan, but how could this possibly reach Rong Xinkuan? His spit was blocked by a protective light shield. "You are courting death." Rong Xinkuan raised a brow, killing intent spreading out in all directions. With a mere thought, that giant black hand immediately tightened its hold. Pa! That guard was instantly squeezed to burst, turning into a mush of blood. Trash that overestimated his own abilities, he said condescendingly, and strode towards the main doors. Who goes there? To actually dare kill in the Ling Manor. A man shot down in front of him. Rong Xinkuan glanced at him, and then asked, "You are Ling Han?" He had seen what Ling Han looked like before, and it was this appearance that was in front of him. However, the other's cultivation level looked to only be the 9th heaven. "I am Ling Hua," this person said. His eyes swept over the surroundings, and immediately discovered the guard's blood that had not completely fallen down. His expression became severe, and after some slight sensing, he immediately grabbed the remnants of that guard's soul. Everything that had happened previously appeared in his mind's eye. He couldn't help but be furious. This man had come to their Ling clan, and just killed someone indiscriminately. Just how arrogant could he be? Ling Hua was the manifestation of one of the 9 source powers of heaven and earth that Ling Han had previously obtained and later set free one after another, allowing them to gain self-consciousness. A source power of heaven and earth had the advantage of a source power. By nature, they had the unique trait of the celestial king tier, but their limitations were also very apparent. Because they were nurtured from the heaven and earth, it was naturally impossible that they could surpass regulations, so 9th heaven celestial king tier was the highest peak they could reach. It was impossible that they could surpass this level and become heavenly venerates. "How dare you!" Ling Hua exclaimed menacingly. Previously, the 9 of them had been roaming around in the world, and only until after they had attained 9th heaven and could not advance any further had they come to the Ling clan, and established themselves as Ling Han's followers. Hence, he was naturally furious right now. Rong Xinkuan revealed an expression of disdain. Nothing but a mere servant, and he actually dared to spit at me. How could it be that he did not deserve to die? Your surname is Ling. What relation do you have with Ling Han? Never mind, I could care less. Go and call Ling Han to come out and greet me on bent knee. Aside from feeling furious, Ling Hua also felt an urge to break into laughter. A mere 9th heaven celestial king actually dared demand a first-tier heavenly venerate come out to receive him on bent knee? It would be better for you to obediently let me apprehend you, and wait quietly to be dealt with. He launched his attack, intending to apprehend Rong Xinkuan. He was not afraid of starting a battle here, because this was a place that had been refined by several heavenly venerates. Every single brick had a condensed sliver of power of a heavenly venerate, and was definitely not something that could crumble from a battle between ninth heaven celestial kings. Chapter 2832, 2832 Too Much Nonsense. 2832 Too Much Nonsense. Ling Hu moved. He was the source fire of heaven and earth in human form, and now he had cultivated to the ninth heaven, so his first move was the highest grade of regulations of fire. As he delivered his punch, power condensed, turning into a giant flaming fist that descended on Rong Xinkuan. Party tricks. Rong Xinkuan said disdainfully, stretching out a hand to parry this oncoming blow. Pung! The two men exchanged blows, and they were both shaken. Regulations turned into a violent force that spread out in all directions, turning into a terrifying shock wave. Thankfully, this was the Ling manner. Every single brick and stone had been refined, and was extremely sturdy, unafraid of this kind of powerful impact. Otherwise, not only would the Ling manor be destroyed, even the whole Ling city would be ruined. You actually do have some strength? Rong Xinkuan showed a hint of surprise. Originally, he had intended to subdue his opponent with a single blow. He had not imagined that Ling Hua would be unexpectedly powerful. This was natural. He was a source power of heaven and earth in human form, and had cultivated to peak stage ninth heaven at that, so how could he not be powerful? Ling Hua roared, and instantly charged back towards Rong Xinkuan. Pang, pang, pang. The two of them fought fiercely, yet it was hard to determine who was stronger. Rong Xinkuan felt slightly embarrassed. He had always considered himself as a descendant of a super-powerful force, yet he was actually unable to suppress a mere guard of Ling City. How could he accept this? Xiao, xiao, xiao. Several other figures shot over, yet they all practically looked the same. They were Ling Mu, Ling Tu, and the other source powers of heaven and earth. Little Fire, do you need help? Ling Shui asked smilingly. No need, I alone can suppress him. Ling Hua declared. He had anger bottled up in him. What a joke. Even if you all attack together, how would you be able to suppress me? Rong Xinkuan was extremely furious. He inhaled softly, and his whole body immediately glowed as his battle prowess instantly spiked at least 10 times over, filled with a frightening oppressive power. Instantly, the pressure on Ling Hua became extraordinarily heavy, and he fell into a disadvantage. This was because Rong Xinkuan was using a heavenly venerate technique, so his battle prowess naturally soared. We attack together. Ling Tu and the others naturally would not just stand by and watch as Ling Hua was defeated or even killed, and they all charged. This was not a fair one-on-one battle. Instead, it was Rong Xinkuan that had taken the initiative to come and provoke the Ling manor. What need was there for them to be concerned about fair play? They just had to kill him. So what if you are attacking together? In front of me, people like you are all trash. Rong Xinkuan laughed loudly. His hands waved quickly, and boundless power surged out, turning into one mysterious seal after another. In a short period of time, his battle prowess had reached an extremely terrifying level. There was no way a ninth heaven celestial king could channel a heavenly venerate technique for a long period of time. Ordinarily, it would be around 2 hours or so, but in this period of time, a ninth heaven celestial king could unleash battle prowess that was close to the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier. This was utterly terrifying. Though Ling Hua and the others were working together, they were still being suppressed by Rong Xinkuan. They could not turn their disadvantage around no matter how hard they tried. After several hundred moves, Rong Xinkuan threw out a heavy punch, and instantly sent Ling Hua and the others flying, causing them to throw up copious amounts of blood and lose the ability to battle any further. Thankfully, they were all formed from the source powers of heaven and earth, and had incredibly tenacious vitality. They would not be dying so easily. Trash will be trash. Rong Xinkuan sneered as he suppressed the boiling sensation in his chest. After using a heavenly Venerate technique for so long, the backlash on him was actually very serious as well, but he was stubbornly clinging to his pride, and would not show his weakness no matter the cost. Ling Hua and the others could say nothing in response. A loss was a loss. Rong Xinkuan laughed loudly. His eyes swept over his surroundings. At this time, a great many people had come out of the Ling manor as well, but they were all servants of the manor. There were not even many celestial kings among them, so it was naturally impossible that they could be Rong Xinkuan's match. "Aren't you going to tell Ling Han to come out and receive me on bent knee?" Rong Xinkuan regained his arrogant, overbearing demeanor. "Father is still in seclusion, and has no time to meet any visitors." A sweet voice rang out. An exquisite beauty had walked out, 9 ribbons of iridescent light wrapped around her, showing that she was a 9th heaven celestial king. This was Ling Shi. She had actually long since cultivated to the 9th heaven, but to strengthen her foundations, and walk the path that her parents had to become the strongest heavenly Venerate, she was tempering her mindset, and when the time came, she would travel from one dimension to the next. Rong Xinkuan glanced over, and his eyes involuntarily shone brilliantly. Beautiful, too beautiful. Though he had had a taste of various types of beautiful women, he had never seen one as beautiful as this woman that was in front of him now. Furthermore, this woman was as pure as a pool of clear water. The mere sight of her brought comfort. "And who are you?" he asked. His attitude was still arrogant. Even the most beautiful woman was only something to add flavor to his life in his eyes. It was impossible that he would dote on any woman like a precious treasure. Though Ling Shi was already angered, she did not display this outwardly, because she was naturally mild-tempered. She was extremely soft and quiet, and said, "My name is Ling Shi, and my father is Ling Han." "Oh." Rong Xinkuan nodded. "This is truly unexpected. To think that Ling Han would actually have such a pretty daughter." He showed an evil grin. It looked like Ling Han would not only be surrendering a single heavenly venerable seal this time. "Who am I? How high and noble am I? How precious is my time?" he asked in quick succession. "Tell Ling Han to immediately come out and receive me on bent knee, or I will rip apart this dilapidated city of yours." Too arrogant, he was really too arrogant. To say nothing of how the servants of the Ling manor all felt unrestrained anger, even someone with a quiet, soft personality like Ling Shi felt a ripple of fury. She looked evenly at Rong Xinkuan, and said, "Sir, you have come to our clan, killed and committed violence, and demand that my father receive you on bent knee. Do you really think that there is no one powerful in Ling clan?" When she said the last few words, she finally revealed the dominance that a 9th heaven celestial king should possess. Actually, while she might look soft, she was tough on the inside, having inherited the Empress's pride and Ling Han's tenacity. However, it was all concealed by her quiet, gentle nature, and it was rare that she would show these traits. "Beauty, fighting and killing is not suited for you. You should be sitting on my lap, and begging for favor instead." Rong Xinkuan laughed loudly, completely unconcerned that she was the daughter of 2 heavenly venerates. No matter how good-tempered Ling she was, she could not possibly tolerate this kind of insult. Moreover, she had already decided to make a move. Boom! She moved, stimulating the boundless power of regulation as she charged towards Rong Xinkuan. What? The moment she moved, Rong Xinkuan was astounded. The techniques Ling Shi used were indeed still within the range of the Celestial King tier, but as she launched her attack, there were over a dozen top-tier regulations being channeled at the same time. This was too terrifying. It was equivalent to having over a dozen peak-stage 9th heaven Celestial Kings attacking simultaneously. Furthermore, they were all mentally connected, and had impeccable coordination at that. This was not as simple an equation as 1 + 1, but had rather been raised to a completely new height. Rong Xinkuan hurriedly retreated, and then channeled his heavenly Venerate technique. Otherwise, it was extremely possible that he wouldn't be able to withstand even 10 strikes from his opponent. He did not dare parry at all. It was only once he had completely channeled the heavenly Venerate technique that a frightening brilliance burst out of his body with a boom. His power instantly increased by over a dozen times, and only then did he exchange a single blow with Ling Shi. Pung! Ling Shi was instantly forced backwards. No matter how freakish she was, if she was still limited within the range of regulations, there was no way she could match a heavenly Venerate technique. In the hands of a ninth heaven celestial king, this was a powerful move that surpassed the level of regulations. Even a pseudo-heavenly Venerate could possibly be killed by this. Ha ha ha, this is all you are capable of. Rong Xinkuan exclaimed arrogantly. Channeling a heavenly Venerate technique, not only did he possess the battle prowess of a pseudo-heavenly Venerate, he had also become one of the stronger members in this level. Beauty, you had best obediently follow me. Ling Shi raised an elegant brow, and suddenly sent out a palm strike. Pung! Rong Xinkuan was instantly sent flying from the impact. You are spouting too much nonsense. Chapter 2833, 2833 Daughter of a Freak. 2833 Daughter of a Freak. Rong Xinkuan was sent flying with a single strike, and that was not the end of it either. When he landed, he was throwing up blood continuously, coughing so hard that his whole chest was covered with blood. He looked completely miserable and battered. He had not been killed or knocked unconscious. Thus, his eyes were wide open as he looked blankly at Ling Shi. How had the latter unleashed such incredibly terrifying power? The gap between them was like the gap between a child and an adult in battle. How could he possibly match her? How could a ninth heaven celestial king be as powerful as this? It should be known that he had actually used a heavenly Venerate technique. This naturally was because Ling Shi had used that small world inside her, which allowed her to possess the strength of a pseudo-heavenly Venerate. In truth, she had also done something that even Ling Han had not imagined. Not only was she extracting the power of this heaven and earth, she was also feeding back to it, which allowed this small world to continuously grow. It was just like she was presently a Genesis world herself. However, this world was too solitary and lonely, only having a single dimension. Furthermore, it was extraordinarily tiny. But this kind of alternative path was still a brave experiment. Who knew, maybe she would be able to pioneer a completely different path of her own. Hence, Ling Shi's present burst of power was not something as simple as pseudo-heavenly Venerable tier. In fact, it could even be close, or reaching, the level of first tier. Why had she been strengthening her foundations all this while? It was because she was nurturing this world. Impossible. Impossible. Rong Xinkuan's expression was filled with confusion. He could not accept this result. They were both at the ninth heaven, so how could the gap between them be as wide as this? Owed debts should be repaid, and one who murders should be executed in turn. Ling Shi stated calmly, but her eyes were filled with absolute determination. The people of the Ling clan will not be insulted. These words roused all the servants of the Ling clan in their surroundings very much. They could tell that not only was Rong Xinkuan a ninth heaven celestial king, his background would definitely be even more shocking, yet Ling Shi actually declared that he would pay for his crime with death, which warmed their hearts. Even if the person who had died was only a servant of the Ling clan would still seek justice for them. Even if the offender had a powerful background, they would not care. Hee hee, what bold words from a little girl, Jiuwu heavenly Venerate finally spoke. He had not moved earlier, because he had been certain that Rong Xinkuan could not possibly die from that one strike. If a third-tier heavenly Venerate couldn't tell even that, he really should kill himself. He stood, arms crossed behind his back. He did not need to make a move at all, and merely the bit of aura seeping from him was enough to suppress eternity and restrain the heavens. A third-tier heavenly Venerate was really that strong. Ling Shi's expression was grim, but she had Ling Han's tenacity. No matter how frightening her powerful enemy was, there was no way she would bow her head. She said, "Senior, you have allowed your junior to come to our Ling clan and cause trouble. May I ask how we have offended you? Take her down." Rong Xinkuan leaped to his feet, but the strike that Ling Shi had struck him was no light blow. This quick jump instantly caused him to cough repeatedly, blood once more spurting out madly. Ling Shi was slightly surprised. A ninth heaven actually dared to yell at a heavenly venerate like this? Even the son of a 7th-tier heavenly venerate could not be so arrogant. This was a heavenly venerate that even the heavens had to respect, so how could a 9th heaven be insolent towards them? Jiuwu heavenly venerate involuntarily felt killing intent rise up in him as well. This idiot, did he really think that he could command a heavenly venerate? However, he had already let the act proceed to this extent, so there was naturally no way he would give up halfway. Thus, he sneered, "Young miss, are you willing to surrender yourself, or do you prefer to have me act?" Thoughts raced through Ling Shi's mind. Her father, mother, and Aunt Hunyao were all in seclusion, and it was not clear when they would be able to come out. Meanwhile, the Rain Emperor and the others had missed traveling after such a long period of quiet, so they had all gone to roam the world. Presently, there was actually not one heavenly venerable tier power that could be mobilized in the entire Ling city. Who was this man? It should be known that Ling city was in the center of power of the Lin clan, and had affable relations with Zhou and Chu clans. This was a massive, astonishing force. Why had these two people still dared to attack them with hostility? This junior boldly seeks guidance from senior. Ling Shi curtsied slightly. Because Jiuwu heavenly venerate had not moved, she also responded calmly and quietly, not showing the slightest bit of anger. Humph. Jiuwu heavenly venerate sneered, a sliver of displeasure flashing through him. In the past, even Ling Han could only flee from him, yet now he had actually fallen to a level that he was fighting with the former's daughter. How humiliating. To show how proud Jiuwu heavenly venerate was, one only had to take a look at his title. He was the emperor among cultivators, and every word he said possessed enormous might. Then I will have you suffer the consequences of your actions. He moved. Boom. The air of primal chaos condensed, and it was like the world had just been created, turning into a giant hand of dark crimson, which grabbed out at Ling Shi. Ling Shi's expression was solemn. With a soft exclamation, Wang, boundless light was unleashed from all over her body, her aura instantly rising to the height of the 1st tier. What? Rong Xinkuan immediately gaped, his face filled with disbelief. A 9th heaven celestial king was actually capable of unleashing the heavenly venerable tier's might? This was not a pseudo-heavenly venerable tier, but rather a genuine 1st tier heavenly venerate. Impossible. Pung. Ling Shi delivered an attack, piercing a hole in that giant hand of dark crimson. Her body slightly trembled, her beautiful face immediately turning pale, and she appeared extremely captivating, and would touch anyone's heart. Even if she had unleashed the battle prowess of the 1st tier, a 3rd tier was a 3rd tier. A casual strike would already surpass the 1st tier, which caused her severe injury. However, this still could not be denied that Ling Shi had created a miracle. Even Jiuwu heavenly venerate's eyes slightly widened, and he felt disbelief. Ling Han was already freakish enough, but his daughter seemed to be even more shocking. The reason that Ling Shi could be this strong was because not only she had activated the small world inside her body, she was also using a heavenly venerate technique. As the daughter of Ling Han and the empress, how could she not have learned any heavenly venerate technique? With her using pseudo-heavenly venerable tier power to activate a heavenly venerate technique, her battle prowess reaching the 1st tier was nothing to be shocked about. After Jiuwu heavenly venerate was slightly started a moment, he regained his arrogant demeanor. So what if she was even more freakish? The gap in their cultivation levels was too wide, and she was still completely no match for him. The people of the Ling clan were too freakish, and all of them had to be eliminated as soon as possible. His eyes sharpened, and he moved again. This time, he was not planning to capture Ling Shi, but was instead going to kill this young woman who had boundless future prospects. Boom! He once again sent out a giant dark crimson hand, which descended on Ling Shi. The power of 3rd tier, capable of killing a 1st tier elite countless times over in an instant, was completely released. Ling Shi could not block this. She retreated, but not only did the giant dark crimson hand follow her closely like a shadow, its speed was even faster, and rapidly narrowed the distance between it and Ling Shi. Pang, pang, pang. Wherever this giant hand passed, every structure was destroyed as if they had been mowed down. The power of third tier was really too terrifying. Young mistress, every member of the Ling clan exclaimed, filled with anxiety. However, they were too weak, and even if they wanted to help, they were powerless to do so. The giant hand assailed her, and Ling Shi could only blast out a full power attack, and closed her eyes. All else would have to depend on fate. Boom! A loud bang resounded, world shaking in its volume. Ling Shi was surprised. She did not feel any power blasting into her. She hurriedly opened her eyes, yet there was an extremely beautiful figure standing in front of her, with both her arms raised to hold up the heavens. "Mother," she exclaimed, naturally filled with joy. Clang! The reaction from the heaven and earth was intense. Immediately, lightning blazed wildly, striking madly on the empress. "You have broken through?" Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate frowned. He could see very clearly that the empress's present state showed that she had broken through, which induced a reaction from the heaven and earth. Even if it could do no harm, bolts of lightning were still striking madly on her. "You dare touch my daughter, you are courting death," the empress declared menacingly. Chapter 2834, 2834 The Empress intervenes. 2834 The Empress intervenes. The Empress's and Ling Shi's personality were complete opposites. Ling Shi was quiet, and avoided conflict. If she met with any trouble, she would be more willing to settle it peacefully. Even if she had to experience a little loss, she wouldn't mind. But the Empress was different. She was really one who considered everyone else below her notice, and thought that everyone in the world should worship and respect her. She would not condone the slightest bit of disrespect. And now there was actually someone that wanted to kill her daughter. How could she not feel blazing killing intent? Die! The Empress charged out. Boom! Her aura surged boundlessly, and even the heavens could not suppress her aura, forcing those bolts of lightning to disappear when they had just struck out a few dozen meters. Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate hurriedly stepped forth to meet her in battle. Pang! 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 Very quickly, they had taken their battle from the ground into the air, each of them using their respective ultimate techniques, and fighting very intensely. The Empress had just broken through into the second tier, but she had condensed the power of 100 dimensions, and they were all high-level dimensions at that. How strong had she been when she had reached peak stage first tier? And now, though she was only in the early stage of the second tier, her power had reached the early stage of the third tier, increased by a whole cultivation level. She was attacking with fury, her black locks flying wildly. She was both beautiful and noble, and was surrounded by an air of danger. Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate was stunned. He realized that he was actually unable to suppress the Empress. It was clear that there was a gap of a cultivation level between them, so it should have been a completely one-sided suppression. Fuck, was everyone in the Ling clan a freak? Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate could not accept this. When they had been in the celestial realm, he had been one of the only 3 heavenly venerates in existence. A single thought had been enough to decide the fate of every single living being in the world. Be it Ling Han or the Empress, they had both been incredibly puny existences in his eyes, reaching the point of being negligible. But who would have imagined that only over an epoch had passed, and not only Ling Han was strong enough to match him, but even the Empress could achieve the same feat now. What had gone wrong with this world? It was too crazy, wasn't it? Jiuwu's killing intent blazed. Since this whole family was so freakish, it was even more necessary for him to eliminate all of them as soon as possible. Otherwise, it would be his turn to tremble in fear in the future. Boom! He went all out, using Heavenly Venerate tools, Heavenly Venerate techniques, and Heavenly Venerable seals, instantly boosting his battle prowess to the extreme. The destruction caused by their clash was too wide-ranging. Space was shattered, and even time was messed up. A time stream appeared, vague and blurred. Countless images appeared, blurred and indistinct, but when a certain scene was reached, the scene of Ling Han, Hunyao, the empress, and the others being hunted down by Jiuwu heavenly Venerate appeared. In the past, Ling Han and his group had needed to journey to the source of the Tiamat stream to cultivate their greatest eternity everlasting physique, but they had been beaten down mercilessly by Jiuwu heavenly Venerate in the end. Thankfully, the karmic life heavenly Venerate was there as well, and only with him was such a huge crisis resolved. However, after leaving the time stream, their memories had all been wiped and they could not remember this. But this was the flaming frost realm, which had its own regulations of time. When the two great elites clashed, they collided with the time stream, and that scene from the past actually reappeared in front of them. In this instant, both great elites recovered this part of their memory. No wonder I felt an impulsive urge that I had to kill all of you when I saw you. So this is the truth. Jiuwu heavenly Venerate said menacingly. He kept feeling an inexplicable hatred towards Ling Han. Previously, he had not known why that was the case, and thought that it was merely because he was worried that after Ling Han grew strong enough, he would become a threat to himself. He had not expected that there had been an earlier grudge between them. The empress was even more menacing. This old bastard had actually dared to hunt her down? You're seeking death. She was utterly enraged, and sent out a palm strike. Peng, 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 peng. Stars rained down from the skies, and even those further in the distance were no exception. They were completely unable to bear the might of her aura. This time, the empress had really become serious. A blurred seal appeared in the middle of her forehead, but it was exuding a powerful aura capable of suppressing the heavens. Her delicate hand descended, and boundless brilliance surged, as if the heaven and earth and eternity was collapsing, with time being destroyed as well. Eternity destruction, the empress declared, and boom, her delicate hand landed. When she had advanced to the second tier, she had automatically mastered a heavenly venerable seal, and just like how it had been when Ling Han advanced to the first tier, it directly boosted her power by 22 times. Furthermore, she had also created her own heavenly Venerate technique, and with both of them being used at the same time, her battle prowess was boosted to a new height. What? Jiuwu heavenly Venerate exclaimed in shock, parrying the empress's blow with a punch, but he was completely outmatched. He had only mastered the more widely known 7 seals, and just how much of a power boost could they provide for him? Peng! Jiuwu heavenly Venerate was instantly sent flying, already throwing up blood while his body was flying through the air, but his blood could not reach the ground, as it was immediately destroyed by the heaven and earth. Heavenly Venerates were envied by the heaven and earth. If they could be eliminated, the heaven and earth would definitely have no mercy. The empress unleashed a battle cry and pursued, continuing a mad barrage of attacks. Jiuwu heavenly Venerate could only parry. No, he could only passively take a beating. The empress's present battle prowess had directly soared to late-stage 3rd tier, and even if Jiuwu heavenly Venerate went all out, his battle prowess could only reach middle-stage 3rd tier. Though there was only a slight difference between the two, this determined his fate of being beaten and unable to fight back. Damn it! Jiuwu heavenly Venerate roared in fury. He was unable to get out of this situation at all, and this strike to his pride was really too strong. However, after suffering several dozen blows in a row, he finally realized that there was no way he could be a match for the empress. If they continued to fight, he could really die here. He turned around harshly, descended, and was just about to grab Rong Xinkuan so they could escape together. Peng! The empress's palm descended, boundless divine light surging. Pa! Rong Xinkuan did not even have the chance to struggle before he was crushed into dust by this extremely domineering power. Even Ling she could not possibly match the power of 3rd tier, what more he? Jiuwu faltered, then immediately turned, and left without the slightest hesitation. Very good. Rong Xinkuan was already dead, and Jiuwu had tried his best. There was no way he could be called to account for this. Everything had gone beyond his expectations, though the one who had delivered the blow was not Ling Han. What difference did it make if it was the Empress or Ling Han who had delivered the fatal blow? Jiuwu moved quickly, fleeing into the distance. Even if the Empress's present battle prowess surpassed his, it was still completely unrealistic if she wanted to catch up to a heavenly Venerate of the same cultivation level. She only pursued him for a few steps before giving up, and descended onto the ground. Mother! Ling, she pounced, throwing herself into the Empress's arms. The Empress stroked her daughter's silky hair gently, and then pushed Ling Shi away. She had never been one to enjoy this kind of clingy embrace, unless the other party was Ling Han. Mother, that man seems to have some background. Ling Shi was naturally used to the Empress's attitude. Who? The Empress asked carelessly. Ling Shi couldn't help but feel speechless. You have just killed him with a single palm strike, and now you have actually forgotten about him the moment you turned your head? She pointed at where Rong Xinkuan had been killed, and said, There, that's the one. Nothing but a common dog, the Empress said disdainfully. Ling Shi shook her head. His background is definitely not so simple. Even a third-tier heavenly Venerate had to obey his commands. The Empress sneered. How could a ninth heaven possibly be able to command a heavenly Venerate? To say nothing of a third tier, even a first-tier heavenly Venerate would not be ordered around. With how intelligent she was, she immediately realized that the Jiuwu heavenly Venerate wanted to use Rong Xinkuan as a tool. There's no need to be afraid, she said. If a sixth-tier heavenly Venerate really attacked, Lin Xiaoyang would definitely intervene. This was the territory of the Lin clan, after all. Ling Shi could only nod, and she soon broke into a smile. Mother, you have broken through to the second tier? The Empress nodded. She glanced at her daughter. You, too, should go to other dimensions. Your foundations have been tempered just about enough. But at this time, Ling Shi was hesitant. With me and your father here, what is there to worry about? The Empress's words were extremely dominant. Chapter 2835, 2835 Rong Yang attacks. 2835 Rong Yang attacks. So after Jiuwu heavenly Venerate fled, he immediately went to the Lin clan. As representative of a sixth-tier heavenly Venerate, and as a fourth-tier himself, Rong Yang naturally was a valued guest of the Lin clan, and had been allocated an extremely elegant courtyard. Spiritual qi had solidified here, and celestial medicines were growing like they were ordinary flowers. Knock, knock, knock. Jiuwu heavenly Venerate knocked on the courtyard doors. The doors were clearly open, but he did not dare to enter without an invitation. Rong Yang was a fourth-tier heavenly Venerate, someone capable of suppressing Jiuwu single-handedly, and the present world was too chaotic. Jiuwu heavenly Venerate would also have to cozy up to the powerful Rong clan, so he was naturally even more respectful. Enter. A clear voice rang out from inside. Jiuwu heavenly Venerate entered, and he had not walked too far before he saw a white-robed young man sitting on the stone stool in the garden while sipping on tea leisurely. He was Rong Yang, the only son of the sixth-tier heavenly Venerate, Rong Tianyu. He had astonishing natural talent, and was already a fourth tier after cultivating for no more than 7 epochs. Even Jiuwu heavenly Venerate was envious of him because he was still only a first-tier heavenly Venerate even after cultivating for several dozen epochs. At present, though Jiuwu heavenly Venerate had already reached the 3rd tier, his accumulation of power for the advancement was already expended. Unless he could obtain a large number of heavenly Venerable seals, there was no way he could advance any further from this. Greetings, Lord Rong. Jiuwu heavenly Venerate clasped his hands in respect. Heavenly Venerate was only the name of a whole group, but with differences in cultivation level, there was naturally an absolute difference in status. Rong Yang nodded slightly, and was still sipping on his tea as he asked calmly, What has happened? Rong Xinkuan is dead. Jiuwu heavenly Venerate bowed his head slightly. Rong Yang immediately raised a brow. Boom! An aura spread out from him, and all the celestial medicines within his vicinity immediately wilted simultaneously. They had not been killed by his power. Instead, it was because his aura was too strong, so even celestial medicines could not bear it. Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate also felt a slight suffocation in his heart, feeling pain that made him have an urge to cough up blood. He related the events that had occurred completely, and did not twist anything. However, he did leave out the process of how he had egged Rong Xinkuan on, and emphasized that Rong Xinkuan had only gone there so he could obtain the Heavenly Venerable seal for Rong Yang's sake. Rong Yang was silent, but very soon the air around him bubbled, and then shattered as multiple tiny holes leading into the void appeared. Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate couldn't help but feel inwardly shocked. He naturally could also tear a rip into the void if he went all out, but he definitely could not have done it as casually as Rong Yang had. A fourth tier was a fourth tier, even if Rong Yang was only an early stage fourth tier. Since you went with Xinkuan, why had you not managed to protect him? Rong Yang finally spoke. This is my fault. Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate bowed his head, making no excuses. He had long since expected this. No matter how well he threw the blame off of himself, Rong Xinkuan had still died, so Jiuwu definitely would have to bear some responsibility. Thus, he offered no excuses, and directly admitted to his fault. Rong Yang looked meaningfully at him, and did not continue to reprimand him. As long as they were Heavenly Venerates, they were standing in the ranks at the peak, so how could they be easily insulted? Though it was very easy for Heavenly Venerates to die now, there were just so many of them. One more dying meant the number would decrease by one, and who knew, maybe even the average number of Heavenly Venerates would actually be lower than the number of dimensions after another epoch. If they wanted to conquer the world, every single Heavenly Venerate was an important source of battle prowess. Rong Yang thought for a moment, and then said, that Ling Han, is he the one that has repeatedly broken records in the past at the realm battlefield? Yes, Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate answered. By now, there was no need for him to hide anything, he only had to tell the truth. Of course, there was absolutely no way he would take the initiative to mention his old grudges with Ling Han. Able to match a third tier when he himself is only a first tier? This is truly shocking, even if it was Xian Qihu and Lin Youyan, have they been able to do the same? Rong Yang murmured to himself. He shook his head. At the very least, it was definitely impossible for him to do so. In fact, he could not even fight one that was a tier higher than himself, because he had only condensed over 30 powers of dimension. He was indeed stronger than Heavenly Venerates of the same level, but his strength was still limited. Producing 3 freaks from the same clan? I truly would like to take a look for myself. He finally stood. Whatever the case, there was no way Rong Xinkuan could die for nothing. The Ling clan had to give Rong Yang an explanation, and give the Rong clan an explanation. Because the Rong clan could not afford such humiliation. Lead the way, he said. Yes, Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate said, his head bowed, a sliver of a smile appearing at the corners of his lips. He had sacrificed his pride, almost becoming a dog for Rong Xinkuan, and it was finally time for him to reap his rewards. Lord Rong. However, the two of them had not even stepped outside when a servant of the Lin clan entered, and bowed to Rong Yang. My master requests Lord Rong to meet him. Rong Yang couldn't help but falter. This so-called master was naturally Lin Xiaoyang. Previously, Lin Xiaoyang had been in seclusion all this while, and had not managed to take out time to grant him an audience. However, a 6th-tier Heavenly Venerate was qualified to make Rong Yang wait, but the latter was not worthy to have a 6th-tier Heavenly Venerate wait for him, allowing him to settle his own matters first. Hence, after faltering momentarily, he nodded. Please lead the way. In any case, the Ling clan would not be moving, so there was no rush. Rong Yang first went to meet Lin Xiaoyang, but he had not expected that Lin Xiaoyang would actually talk with him for 3 days and 3 nights, confirming some details of their cooperation, and only then was he allowed to leave. Once he returned to his quarters, Rong Yang summoned Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate, and they charged towards Ling City. He knew that Ling City was a secondary city of the Lin clan, but he did not care. Compared with the alliance with the Ling clan, what was a mere third-tier battle prowess worth? He was sure that even if he eliminated every single person in the Ling clan, Lin Xiaoyang would only reprimand him with a few words at most. In just a short while, the two great heavenly venerates arrived at Ling City. In comparison, Rong Yang was much more domineering. He directly released the aura belonging to the heavenly venerable tier, which enshrouded the entire Ling City. However, what made him gloomy was that though everyone in Ling City was trembling under the suppression of his aura, not one of them actually panicked too much. Fuck, what was going on here? What he did not know was that Zhang Kailuan had repeatedly come to Ling City to challenge Ling Han, so this heavenly venerable tier aura was really nothing much for the people of Ling City. Though even a ninth heaven celestial king was not capable of bearing the aura of a heavenly venerate, while they physically could not bear it, they were indeed mentally used to it. Rong Yang couldn't be bothered to think too deeply about the reason behind this. He did not care. Ling Han, come out and see me, he demanded. Scram. Only this voice rang out from within the city. It was the Tsundra Empress. Hee, those that dare to say this to me either have not been born yet, or are already dead. Rong Yang sneered, and moved directly, his hand moving to enshrouding the whole Ling City. Wang, a delicate hand stretched out, instantly turning into a colossal palm that covered the skies, meeting his incoming strike. Boom! The two giant hands clashed together, and the delicate hand immediately shattered. Rong Yang's giant hand descended, continuing to press down on Ling City. Wang, Wang, Wang. One after another, giant hands or clawed hands were launched from within the city in response to Rong Yang's giant hand. Peng, 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 peng. These attacks were like a mantis trying to stop a chariot, immediately crumbling when they collided with Rong Yang's giant hand. However, the number of these attacks was impressive. When Rong Yang's giant hand finally landed, the destruction caused was also very limited. Boom! The entire city was trembling wildly, and large numbers of buildings collapsed, but it did not cause a very great scale of destruction. After all, the Empress's first attack had already dispersed at least 30% of the force behind Rong Yang's strike. Rong Yang was surprised. He had not imagined that there would actually be so many heavenly venerates within Ling City. But it was fine, even the strongest elite among these heavenly venerates was only a third tier. Chapter 28-36, 2836 Outmatched. 2836 Outmatched. Why were there so many heavenly venerates in Ling City? Very coincidentally, the Rain Emperor, Jiuwu, the Karmic Life Heavenly Venerable, and other elites had just ended their adventures, and happened to return just the day before. Xiao, Xiao, Xiao. One after another, figures shot out from within the city, standing proudly in midair. The Karmic Life Heavenly Venerable, Jiuwu, the Rain Emperor, Hua Furong, the large black dog, as well as the Empress, all of them either first-tier or second-tier heavenly venerates. The one with the highest cultivation level among them was the Karmic Life Heavenly Venerable, who was already a third tier. After all, he was nurtured from the heaven and earth, and he had already surpassed everyone by nature. Bunch of pushovers. Rong Yang was completely unconcerned. He was a fourth tier, and if he went all out, then even if these people joined forces, they would still be no match for him. Did you hear me? Scram, the Empress shouted lightly. Rong Yang glanced at her, and his eyes involuntarily lit up. The Empress's grace and beauty was too captivating, and even he couldn't help but feel his heart move. However, he was a fourth tier, after all, so how could he so easily become enraptured by beauty? Lord Rong, this is the murderer who killed Rong Xinkuan, Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate said in a timely manner. Rong Yang nodded, and showed a hint of surprise. Though he had long since guessed it, he had not imagined that the Empress would actually be so beautiful and graceful. His expression became menacing. You are quite bold to dare to kill even a member of our Rong clan. So what if I killed him? Why are you spouting so much nonsense? If you continue to be chatty, I will slaughter you as well, the empress declared impatiently. She could not be bothered to say that it was Rong Xinkuan who had taken the initiative to kill a member of the Ling clan first. What did it matter? If she wanted to kill him, then she would. How brazen. Rong Yang shook his head. It was this woman who had committed the crime, and now she was actually still so arrogant even after seeing him. Did she think that she was a supreme elite of the 7th tier? He stood in the skies, looking down on all of them. You, bind yourself, then head to our Rong clan for discipline. Then, ask Ling Han to come out, and surrender the heavenly venerable seal, and this matter. I can also let this go. This was the territory of the Lin clan, after all, and he was not a self-centered guy like Rong Xinkuan either. Hence, he left a bit of allowance, and did not want to do something like massacring the entire city. Scram! The empress sent out a palm strike, the force turning into a jade-like giant palm that covered the heaven and earth. How dare you! Rong Yang was really outraged. A mere 2nd tier, so what if she possessed 3rd tier battle prowess? In front of a 4th tier, she should still be utterly respectful. He moved as well, moving to suppress the empress. When a 4th tier moved, how could 3rd tier battle prowess match it? The karmic life heavenly venerable, Jiuwu, and the others all moved, joining forces with the empress against Rong Yang. Boom! 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 All the heavenly venerates were battling fiercely in the skies, blasting the heaven and earth till it turned pale, stretches of space collapsing one after another. However, even if the empress and the others had an advantage in numbers, faced with absolute power, they were still outmatched and suppressed by Rong Yang single-handedly. Every single one of them was in dire straits. They had already gone all out, using heavenly venerable seals, precious tools, and secret techniques one after another, but faced with Rong Yang's invincible power, they could only continuously sustain heavy injuries. Including the empress, all of them were covered with injuries. They were only still standing with mere force of will, and that was the only reason why they had not collapsed. However, no matter how strong the willpower, it could not last. There would eventually come a time when willpower was no longer enough. You all have angered me, Rong Yang declared menacingly. Faced with a 4th tier elite, these people actually did not have the slightest bit of respect, which caused killing intent to grow within him. Die! He sent out a palm strike. Pa! He was instantly sent flying, a mist of blood spraying out from all over his body as he directly dropped out of the skies. This was because the empress and the others had joined forces to block a portion of the power. Otherwise, how could a 1st tier survive the attack of a 4th tier? Next, Rong Yang set his eyes on Jiuwu. He did not care that his attack had not killed Yi. What he wanted was to crush all of them. Pung! No one could stop it, and Jiuwu was also sent flying, one of his arms directly ripped off with the powerful force. It was like Rong Yang was a demonic god. He was so powerful that every move possessed invincible might, beating the empress, the karmic life heavenly venerable, and the others to the point of severe damage and injury. Everyone couldn't help but feel hopeless. The gap in strength was too wide. This was not something that mere numbers could make up for. If they wanted to use numbers to compensate for this gap, their numbers would have to be multiplied by another 10-fold, at least. The higher the cultivation level, the wider the gap in strength would be among heavenly venerates. Having mastered one additional or one less fundamental power of the Genesis world would really indicate much too great a gap. Where was the Lin clan? Could it be that they were just sitting by and watching Rong Yang wreak havoc? In the distance. Father, are you really not planning to interfere? Lin Piaoxue asked. Lin Xiaoyang smiled. There is no need for me to interfere. But don't worry. I can already sense it, that brat is about to come out of seclusion, Lin Xiaoyang interrupted what his daughter had been about to say. Furthermore, it will also be beneficial for these people to experience a life-threatening danger. Lin Piaoxue nodded. she naturally trusted her father's judgment. If he said that Ling Han was about to come out of seclusion, it was definite that Ling Han would soon be coming out of seclusion. After going through as long as 20 billion years of harsh cultivation, Ling Han had finally pushed his cultivation level to peak stage first tier. He was now qualified to attempt breaking through to the second tier. This is still first tier. From second tier onwards, not only do I have to cultivate the 6 fundamental powers, I also have to continue improving my powers of dimension. There is no doubt that my speed will be even more slowed down. Ling Han sighed, but he set this matter aside soon afterwards. Even if he was slow, how could it be that he would choose not to break through? To other heavenly venerates, the difficulty of advancing from the first tier to second tier was actually more or less the same level of difficulty as a 9th heaven advancing to the heavenly venerable tier. It was all beginning from zero, and was extremely difficult, but for Ling Han, this was indeed a small matter. It was because he had long since been able to sense void particles, and used void particle energy to temper his physique, which allowed him to become incredibly freakish even just as a celestial king. Now, all he had to do was extract void particle energy again, and convert it for his own use. He could also directly draw upon it for his use. Wang. His consciousness spread out in the heaven and earth, and instantly got hold of countless void particles. The higher his cultivation level was, the stronger his divine sense would naturally be, and also the wider the heaven and earth he could come into contact with. It was just like his divine sense was a net. The wider the net was stretched, the more fish would be naturally captured. Void particles were these fishes. Come on, come on. Wang. Ling Han's figure trembled. His consciousness had actually split, and a portion had entered into an unknown space. He immediately realized that this was the void. Boom. The void was extremely violent. This was because there was no substance here, and the only thing here was the 6 great fundamental powers. The 6 fundamental powers of void particles, constant particles, mesotron particles, receive particles, rainbow particles, and quark particles were all within, but Ling Han could only sense one of these at the moment. What was going on here? He had clearly not sent his consciousness into the void, so how did he suddenly end up in the void? Aside from being stunned, Ling Han also felt an inconceivable terror. This meant that he was unable to perfectly control himself, and great trouble would ensue. All of a sudden, a sense of indescribable fear rose up inside his heart. In the void, a black chain suddenly lashed out at him. No, it was probably more accurate to call it a tentacle. Hysteria. Ling Han immediately came to his senses. But why was it so coincidental? His consciousness had just entered the void, and hysteria had already traced him. There was absolutely no way he could match hysteria, and he hurriedly withdrew his consciousness frantically. Xiao. His consciousness retreated from the void. Just a little bit more, and hysteria's tentacle would have touched him. Chapter 2837, 2837 Ling Han vs. Rong Yang. 2837 Ling Han vs. Rong Yang. Ling Han sighed in relief, layers of cold sweat covering his body. So strange, why was it that he kept bumping into hysteria? He paused slightly, and sensed a powerful aura, as well as the feelings of anxiety and terror that were exuding from the Empress and the others. There was an enemy. He was both furious and shocked. This was the ancestral grounds of the Lin clan. How could they have met with an enemy attack here? But the Empress and the others were in danger, so what time would he have to ponder on this problem? He immediately rose up, and directly traversed through the space, flying into the air. Boom! Rong Yang's palm was just about to strike the Empress when he felt a frightening aura assail him, causing him to shiver. He hurriedly withdrew his attack, and became serious because he had a feeling that if the other party landed an attack on him, he would not be able to block it with the power of his defense. Ling City actually had such a powerful elite? Ling Han. Brother Ling. Fourth brother. The Empress and the others all exclaimed in surprise. In their eyes, once Ling Han appeared, anything and everything could be easily resolved. So you are Ling Han? Rong Yang set his eyes on Ling Han. Clang! The heaven and earth reacted, and were just about to unleash a great tribulation to blast Ling Han madly. Rong Yang knew that Ling Han had previously been only a first tier, so he should have just advanced to the second tier by now. A mere second tier was actually capable of making him feel threatened? Rong Yang recalled how Ling Han had been able to match third tiers when he himself was only in first tier. Could it be that he was able to match a fourth tier now that he had advanced to the second tier? It should be known that even if anyone condensed several dozen or even over 100 powers of dimension in the first tier, and was capable of crushing his peers of the same cultivation level, this advantage would actually be slowly reduced as cultivation level increased. That was because the increase in strength with every step taken at the heavenly venerable tier was really much, much too great. As a simple example, when one was in the first tier, the ratio of strength would be 10 to 1, but every step further would be an increase of 10 or 100 points of battle prowess. In that case, though there would still be a gap, this gap would undoubtedly become smaller and smaller. Hence, even if Ling Han could match a third tier when he was in the first tier, his battle prowess at the same cultivation level would definitely decline considerably after he advanced to the second tier. If he could still fight against an opponent who had an advantage of 2 cultivation levels over him, that would be too inconceivable. Hence, Rong Yang was very confused about that feeling that he had just felt. Why would he feel wary of someone who had just broken through to the second tier? This was unbelievable to him. Boom! However, what responded to him was not Ling Han's words, but rather his fist, which was filled with dominance and fury. There was also an indescribably grand aura, as if this whole world, no, the entire Genesis world could be destroyed with a single blow. Rong Yang brandished a fist in response. Pung! Great power collided, and both of them trembled before simultaneously flying backwards. Clearly, their power was within the same level. Fourth tier, this was indeed the power of the fourth tier. Rong Yang steadied his footing. You are truly overbearing. You have killed one of our Rong clan, yet are not showing the slightest bit of apology. Instead, you are just acting forceful. Ling Han's gaze swept over, and he had already spotted Jiuwu heavenly Venerate. Though he did not know how things had happened, he could already guess. This had to have something to do with Jiuwu heavenly Venerate. No need for so much nonsense. We fight first. Ling Han rushed forwards. They actually dared attack his wife, friends, and brothers, so even if he did not kill Rong Yang, he was determined to beat him into a pulp. Rong Yang had no choice but to parry, and exchanged blows with Ling Han. Their power was within the same level, but it was still Rong Yang that was slightly stronger. After all, his cultivation level was early stage 4th tier, and added with how he had fused over 30 powers of dimension when he had been in the first tier, his battle prowess was comparable to late stage 4th tier, which was naturally stronger than Ling Han. But after Ling Han started using fists of fury, his disadvantage was immediately reversed. This was a heavenly venerate technique that Ling Han had invented himself, and was most suited for him, pushing his battle prowess to the late stage of the 4th tier, which was enough to match Rong Yang. No, the fist intent of fists of fury was mad fury, and the present Ling Han was in a state of utter fury. Every blow he delivered was above standard. In fact, it was battle prowess that was close to the peak stage of the 4th tier, so Rong Yang had no choice but to use a heavenly venerate technique in response as well. Now, the two were evenly matched. As the two of them fought, their anger was also rising. They both drew their heavenly venerate tools, and boosted their battle prowess with heavenly venerable seals. A blurred seal flickered on Rong Yang's forehead, his battle prowess immediately soaring over a dozen times. This was clearly not one of the more widely known 7 seals. As for whether Rong Yang himself had obtained it through comprehension, or obtained it from a historical site, or it had been severed from Rong Tianyu's mind and passed on to his son, it was unclear. Ling Han was not willing to show weakness either. He similarly channeled a heavenly venerable seal. This was not one of the 13 seals that he had previously gotten, but rather one that had automatically appeared in his mind when he had just broken through to the second tier. The 14th Heavenly Venerable Seal. Wang. Ling Han's battle prowess immediately soared by 29 times. This was extremely frightening. It should be known that any solitary seal, even if it was the 8th seal, could only boost his battle prowess by 27 times, and it was only after combining the 4 directions seals that allowed his battle prowess to increase by 39 times, which had surpassed this 14th seal. Most importantly, this 14th seal was actually still incomplete, just like how the 8th seal had previously been. Then, after it was mended, just how many times would it increase his battle prowess? 40 times? 50 times? Ling Han unleashed a battle cry, his right hand throwing out a fist of fury, while his left hand was striking out with the divine demon sword, pushing his battle prowess to the extreme. In this manner, the gap between them was obvious. Rong Yang was outmatched. Rong Yang could not accept this. He, a dignified 4th-tier Heavenly Venerate, was actually no match for a 2nd-tier Heavenly Venerate. He knew that this primarily was because the level of the Heavenly Venerable Seal that Ling Han had mastered was superior, and it was not just a little bit superior at that, but rather a lot more superior. He gritted his teeth and forged on. Heavenly Venerable Seals could only release energy for 2 hours. As long as he could weather this period of time, he did not believe that Ling Han would have another high-level Heavenly Venerable Seal. By that time, he would definitely be able to turn tables around. That was because he was a noble, dignified 4th-tier Heavenly Venerate. How could the number of high-level Heavenly Venerable Seals he had mastered be less than Ling Han's? Pung! A heavy punch landed on Rong Yang, and he felt his face ache and burn hotly. This infuriated him, and he released a loud roar. However, it was useless. Pung, pung, pung. Rong Yang continuously sustained blows. The power of Ling Han's fists was too overwhelming. Every blow caused Rong Yang's body to tremble, and even his bones were close to breaking. Gritting his teeth, he forged onwards. How could it be that he would not be able to last even 2 hours? The Empress and the others all felt gratified to see this. All of them had been seriously wounded by Rong Yang, and they naturally felt pleased to see Rong Yang suffering a beating now. However, Rong Yang's tenacity was truly astonishing. He actually managed to forcefully last 2 hours. Do you still have such high-level Heavenly Venerable Seals? Rong Yang laughed loudly. He thought that this was the Heavenly Venerable Seal that Ling Han had obtained from the realm battlefield and which had been nurtured from the blood, flesh, and essence of countless 3rd-tier Heavenly Venerates, so it was normal for it to have such a high level. It's my turn now. Rong Yang had also exhausted a Heavenly Venerable Seal, and immediately added another. Though it was not as astounding as that first one, it still helped his battle prowess to soar to 14 times his normal. Pung! He exchanged a single blow with Ling Han, and his whole person was instantly sent flying backwards. What? Rong Yang was dumbfounded. Why was his battle prowess still outmatched? How could a Heavenly Venerate that had just barely advanced to the 2nd tier possibly possess more than one high-level Heavenly Venerable Seal? Chapter 2838, 2838 Taking down Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate. 2838 Taking down Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate. I will forge on again. Rong Yang was fuming inwardly. He didn't believe that Ling Han had mastered more high-level Heavenly Venerable Seals than himself. As long as he could persevere until Ling Han's high-level Heavenly Venerable Seals were used up, it would be his turn to show his might. Pung, 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 pung. Rong Yang continued to endure the beating, and was being so brutally pummeled that he soon became severely wounded and was bleeding heavily. With maimed limbs, it was a miserable situation. But for a Heavenly Venerate, as long as his life force wasn't wounded and the mind wasn't obliterated, then everything could recover very quickly. This had leaped out of the range of regulations. The fundamental power of the Genesis world has an incomparably miraculous effect. However, This merely made Rong Yang more capable of enduring a beating. Another hour later, Rong Yang was filled with anticipation as he was going to fight back. Ling Han channeled the ninth seal again. The two heavenly venerable seals which were being channeled earlier emerged on their own when he had broken through to the next cultivation level, while the ninth seal was obtained from the realm battlefield, condensed from the flesh and blood of countless third-tier heavenly venerates. The power boost of the ninth seal was only 15 times, which was far inferior to the 27 times of the 8th seal and the 29 times of the 14th seal, but Rong Yang, who had also used two high-level heavenly venerable seals, felt immense pressure. The third heavenly venerable seal that he used could only boost his power by 13 times. Although he was already at the same level as Ling Han, being inferior meant just that there was nothing else to be said about it. Therefore, he was still at a disadvantage, it was just that the frequency of him getting beaten was much less. Rong Yang was about to lose his mind. Who exactly was the fourth-tier heavenly venerate here? He snarled, but this did not reverse his position of disadvantage at all, and he was still getting beaten. But one really had to admit his toughness, he was still fighting tenaciously after being beaten like this. Ling Han couldn't help but nod, top prodigies were indeed extraordinary. At least in terms of willpower, each one was just as tenacious and unyielding. Indeed, that meant Ling Han could beat him up to his heart's content. Another hour later, Rong Yang's eyes became dead serious. Do you still have any high-level heavenly venerable seal left? I will let you see the true power of my background. Wang, the 8 seals on his back glowed simultaneously. Simultaneously channeling 8 heavenly venerable seals? He must have gone crazy, the power of a heavenly venerable seal couldn't be superimposed in any way. Nevertheless, Ling Han's eyes narrowed. Of course Rong Yang wasn't such a fool, and therefore the fact that he was channeling 8 seals simultaneously could only prove one point. He had mastered combination seals. 8 seals, this was truly amazing. Boom, Rong Yang unleashed a strike which actually caught Ling Han by surprise. It wasn't that the power was too great, but rather, too weak. It merely increased his power by about a dozen times. Those were 8 heavenly venerable seals. Ling Han thought for a while, and finally understood. These ought to be 8 low-level heavenly venerable seals. Didn't Lin Luo divide the heavenly venerable seals into 9 grades? Then this ought to be the 9th grade, whereby the boost of each heavenly venerable seal was below 10 times, so the combination of 8 seals would boost the power to around a dozen times. One couldn't underestimate them, as these were originally 9th grade heavenly venerable seals, but after combining them, they would advance to the 8th grade, which was already quite extraordinary. Rong Yang was exceptionally confident. Ling Han had used up 3 heavenly venerable seals, 1 of 8th grade and 2 of 7th grade. Even if there were more, they would at most be of the 8th grade. His combination seals had increased his power by 19 times, close to the 7th grade. It could definitely suppress Ling Han's next heavenly venerable seal. Oh, this background isn't too bad. Ling Han shook his head, and when he punched out, the skull, pelvis, arm bones, and leg bones glowed simultaneously, with each part having a flickering seal, and exuding a supreme domineering aura despite being blurred. Boom, with a punch, 4 divine beasts appeared and turned solid, which was extremely terrifying. What? Rong Yang was taken aback that current Ling Han had suddenly raised his power to a height that he could only look up to. Not to mention Ling Han, even a single divine beast had the battle prowess to crush him. Fuck. Ling Han actually had also mastered the combination seals, and his level far exceeded his own mastery. Just 4 of them already increased his power by more than 30 times, leading to an absolute suppression upon Rong Yang. After experiencing a succession of heavy blows, Rong Yang finally couldn't sustain it anymore. He was violently beaten and fell down from the sky. Peng, he fell heavily onto the ground, and his body directly smashed open a deep hole into the ground, and one couldn't even see its bottom. Ling Han's figure descended. The 4 seals disappeared, and he turned his gaze towards Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate. Jiuwu couldn't help it when his heart shrank all of a sudden. He knew that Ling Han was extremely freakish, which was the reason why he wanted to kill Ling Han so badly no matter what. However, he never thought that Ling Han's drive would be so strong, not only surpassing himself, but also easily suppressing Rong Yang, a fourth tier. What to do? What to do? Sweat involuntarily dripped from Jiuwu's forehead. He had experienced countless crises in his lifetime. Before he became a heavenly Venerate, things weren't smooth sailing for him as well, but he managed to resolve them by virtue of his strength, wit, and luck. Now that his strength was far behind, and his wit probably was useless, would Ling Han listen to his explanation? It would be just a matter of luck. But luck was too unreliable. Still, could it be possible for a fifth-tier heavenly Venerate to suddenly appear at this instance and order Ling Han to stop? There wasn't any fifth-tier heavenly Venerate, but there was one sixth-tier heavenly Venerate. It was only that Lin Xiaoyang obviously had no intention of coming forward. Ling Han. Peng, Rong Yang flew out from the ground. He had broken arms and legs, and was covered in blood, but his fighting spirit nevertheless shot up to the skies. He glared at Ling Han angrily, and had not the slightest intention of stopping the battle at all. Ling Han turned his head and glanced at him. I see that you have also been deceived by another, and this villain is none other than him. He pointed at Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate. Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate humphed. I don't know what you are talking about. Ling Han, don't be too presumptuous. Lord Rong is the only son of the sixth-tier Heavenly Venerate, Rong Tianyu. He wanted to suppress Ling Han using a sixth-tier Heavenly Venerate. At this moment, Rong Yang scolded Jiuwu angrily. This is my battle, don't mention my father. Ling Han laughed loudly, and said to Rong Yang, you are considered a tough one, you have my respect. His figure jumped out at this moment and charged murderously towards Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate. Your opponent is me. Rong Yang didn't appreciate it, and intercepted Ling Han. Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate hurriedly retreated. How could he be Ling Han's match? Ling Han directly channeled the four direction seals, and Peng, he sent Rong Yang flying into the air with a single punch, and then quickly caught up with Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate, stretching out his hand to grab the opponent's neck. Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate almost went mad with anger. After all, he was a Heavenly Venerate, and a third tier at that. Yet, Ling Han actually used a method like an eagle catching chickens to bully him. How condescending was this? But he didn't dare to make any objections, and quickly took advantage of the chance created by Rong Yang's attack to escape. However, with such a big gap in strength, how could he run? A huge force quickly struck, causing all the hair on his back to stand on ends. He couldn't escape. He mused inwardly that he could only be compelled to turn around and fight, and so boom, he brandished a Heavenly Venerate tool, and channeled a Heavenly Venerable seal, but this was one of the 7 more widely known seals, and could only increase his power by 4 times. Not to mention fighting against the 4 direction seals, even if Ling Han didn't use any secret technique, but merely blasted out 4th tier power, it also wasn't something that Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate could match. Peng, his counterattack immediately fell apart. Ling Han's big hand, which he was already using to grip his opponent's neck, was hardly affected at all. Chapter 2839, 2839 A Strange Change. 2839 A Strange Change. One of the 3 big shots of the celestial realm was now being hoisted like a dead dog. This made the karmic life Heavenly Venerable, Jiuwu, and the others all feel rueful. However, the large black dog was clapping his paws gladly. He had been longing to see this scene for a very long time. Ling Han. Rong Yang roared. No matter what, Jiuwu could also be considered his subordinate, and now he was being humiliated like this, so it was also an embarrassment for him. However, he had already been thrashed severely by Ling Han, so he actually was already embarrassed. Ling Han shook his head. Don't be excited yet. Let's see what this guy would say first. Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate sneered. Ling Han, I only rue that I had not killed you earlier, which was what led to today's disaster. N? Rong Yang faltered slightly. With his intelligence, how could it be that he could not deduce the fact that the two of them had known each other long before from these words of Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate? Furthermore, they had an existing grudge between them. Rong Yang thought deeper. Could it be that it was Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate who had egged Rong Xinkuan on to come here? His motive was so that he could use the latter as a tool for his crime. It was you who egged on Rong Xinkuan to come here? Rong Yang questioned Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate. Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate had already thrown everything on the line. He only laughed loudly, his eyes glaring at Ling Han in fury. Junior, I have had countless chances to kill you before, but I have underestimated you too much, and thought that you were nothing but an ant, and disdained from making a move on you personally. Very sorry, I have disappointed you, Ling Han said calmly. Looks like you do not have the slightest intention to reflect on the error of your ways. If so, I can't be bothered to waste any more time either. I'll just send you on your way now. Ling Han, there will come a day that you will find out that there will always be someone stronger and more talented than you. You are definitely not the strongest in this world. It was like Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate was cursing him, tears of blood dripping from his eyes. He resented everything. He was filled with overwhelming resentment. Ling Han had been nothing more than the most negligible ant of the celestial realm, yet now he had turned around to subdue him, which filled him with defiance and regret that he had not killed Ling Han earlier. Ling Han humphed, frightening power surging from his right hand. Pung! Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate was immediately blasted into a shower of blood. A Heavenly Venerate had died, but there was no movement from the heaven and earth, as if it was just a cat or dog that had died. Ling Han paused. Ling Han! Rong Yang shouted in fury. He had not investigated the whole matter thoroughly yet, so why had you killed him? Ling Han was thinking pensively. He ignored Rong Yang, and merely swept Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate's soul over to Rong Yang with a wave of his hand. Whatever questions you have, you can find out the answers on your own. Rong Yang was just about to speak, but after a moment of consideration, he still stretched out his right hand, and grabbed Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate's soul as he began to flip through his memories. His expression became gradually more livid because he had already flipped through the process of how Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate had tricked Rong Xinkuan into coming to Ling City, as well as the origins of the enmity between Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate and Ling Han and the others. He now knew that the Rong clan had been manipulated by Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate. How despicable. He wanted nothing more than to kill Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate again. A mere third tier actually dared to manipulate a sixth tier force. That was too outrageously bold. Ling Han, though it was this villain that caused this event to happen, you have indeed killed a member of our Rong clan. This matter, you have to give our Rong clan an explanation. He suppressed his fury. It was indeed Rong Xinkuan who had started this, but there was no member of the Rong Xinkuan that would die for nothing. Ling Han ignored him because an intense change was taking place presently inside his body. When he had killed Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate just now, Ling Han discovered that there was a powerful force that was surging into his body. When he sensed it carefully, it was actually the vitality of Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate. Ling Han was very shocked. He had not been cultivating any kind of evil or demonic cultivation technique, so why would he swallow the life essence of Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate? He had never heard that anyone who had advanced to the second tier would possess this ability. This kind of change was too sudden and too strange, so he was completely in no mood to pay any regard to Rong Yang. Instead, he was focused on the change within himself. Jiuwu's life essence turned into endless nutrition that was rapidly advancing the powers of dimension within every cell inside his body. If he could continue to advance like this, he probably would not need a few thousand years before he would be able to attempt breaking through to the third tier. Ling Han was not too pleased. This kind of ability shocked him, and even filled him with a kind of terror. This was equivalent to devouring other heavenly venerates and turning them into nutrition for himself. The rate of his advancement through the cultivation levels was astonishingly rapid. If this could be easily copied, wouldn't the whole world go crazy? Heavenly Venerates would hunt down other heavenly Venerates, creating rivers of blood. The Genesis world would soon be left with only a few scattered heavenly Venerates who were the strongest. Ling Han. Rong Yang roared in fury. Ling Han actually dared to ignore him. Wasn't it just defeating him for now? What was there to be so smug about? Ling Han snapped out of his daze, and asked, "What kind of explanation do you want from me? Go to our Rong clan and beg for forgiveness on your knees." Rong Yang demanded. Ling Han instantly scoffed. "Are you an idiot? Could it be that you don't know it was Rong Xinkuan himself who had come here? Moreover, he has also killed a member of our Ling clan, so I, too, should demand an explanation from the Rong clan, right?" Rong Yang was indignant. How could the life of a servant be compared to a member of the main branch of Rong clan? Hee, let me be the mediator here. There was a long laugh, and Lin Xiaoyang appeared, Lin Piaoxue following closely behind. "Greetings, Lord Lin." "Greetings, Senior Lin." Both Ling Han and Rong Yang bowed in respect. This was a 6th-tier heavenly venerate, so who could afford to treat him with disrespect? Lin Xiaoyang raised his hand, and said, "It was indeed Rong Xinkuan who started this whole matter. With his character, there is a reason why he is dead." Rong Yang wanted to explain, but seeing how Lin Xiaoyang's glance swept towards him, he immediately fell silent. In front of a 6th tier, there was no room for him to refute. Though he could not resign himself to this, since Lin Xiaoyang had already passed judgment, then he was not worthy to continue debating the matter, unless his old man made a personal appearance. "Rong Yang, come." Lin Xiaoyang beckoned Rong Yang over towards him. Rong Yang had no choice, and could only leave with Lin Xiaoyang. Meanwhile, Lin Piaoxue winked at Ling Han, and also turned around, leaving with her father. Ling Han. With the departure of the 3 great heavenly venerates, the empress and the others all gathered around him. They were all pleased. Now that Ling Han had advanced another step further, Ling City now possessed a 4th-tier powerhouse, which would mean greater safety in this chaotic world. Ling Han very much wanted to ask someone else regarding this ability that he had suddenly gained, but the empress had just advanced to the 2nd tier, and had not killed any heavenly venerate before, so it was naturally impossible that she would know whether she had this kind of ability or not. And this was not something that could be easily experimented with. Oh, where should he find a heavenly venerate for the empress to kill? Ling Han really missed the realm battlefield. If they were still warring with hysteria now, the speed of his progression through cultivation levels would be very fast. He only had to breach the barrier between cultivation levels, and even attaining 7th tier would not take too much time for him. He instinctively felt that he could not let any outsiders know this, or it could possibly lead to great trouble. Ling Han set this matter aside for the moment, and found out after some queries that Ling Shi had already set out 2 days ago, heading to various dimensions to harvest the power of dimension there, pioneering her own path of heavenly venerable tier. In Hunyo's case, she was still in seclusion. Apparently, she would not come out of seclusion unless she reached the 3rd tier. Calm returned for the moment. With Lin Xiaoyang stepping out to mediate, Rong Xinkuan did not come to call for an accounting of old debts over the matter of Rong Xinkuan's death again, but after several tens of thousands of years, Rong Xinkuan appeared once more at Ling City. Chapter 2840, 2840 Fight. 2840 Fight. Fight? Ling Han looked at Rong Yang in surprise. He had not expected that Rong Yang would actually come to invite him to participate in some kind of fight. Rong Yang nodded. "That's right, a fight. There are over a dozen of us, and we suppress our cultivation level to a specific level and then fight. The last standing will be able to claim the first place. Furthermore, before the fight, we will all sever a heavenly venerable seal, and the first place holder will be able to obtain these seals for himself." Ling Han was surprised. There were really heavy stakes on this fight. However, in a battle of equal cultivation levels, did he have any match? Wasn't this just delivering treasure straight into his hands? Ling Han looked at Rong Yang. Though his grudge with the Rong clan had been resolved by Lin Xiaoyang, his relationship with the Rong clan could not be considered amiable. Why would Rong Yang push such a good opportunity onto him? Rong Yang could tell the doubt in Ling Han's eyes. He smiled bitterly. I have no intention to choose you to profit. However, recently, a monster has suddenly popped up. In a battle of equal cultivation levels, there is no one that is his match, and I lost very terribly. Oh. Ling Han was slightly surprised. Though Rong Yang was not the strongest in his cultivation level, he had also accommodated a great many powers of dimension when he had been in the first tier. Under circumstances when both parties were equal in cultivation level, there should not be many that could defeat him. Could it be that it was either Xian Qihu or Wu Haoyang that made a move? Rong Yang shook his head. We aren't idiots, so how could we fight them if it was them? That man's name is Mending. No one knows his background, but within the cultivation level of the second tier, he can be considered invincible. Thus, you have come to find me? Ling Han looked towards Rong Yang. Ling Han, you are already able to match a fourth tier when you are only in the second tier. However, this may not be an ability that you alone possess, Rong Yang said seriously. In a battle of equal cultivation level, none of us could match Mending. Afterwards, he relaxed the restrictions, and allowed us to use third tier's power to fight him. As a result, we were still horribly defeated. In the end, he allowed us to fight him with fourth tier power again, but the result? Most of us still lost. And just like this, he has deceived us 3 times. Everyone has lost 3 heavenly venerable seals. Ling Han couldn't help but feel tempted. Rong Yang said that there were over a dozen of them, so whenever Mending won, he would be able to obtain more than a dozen heavenly venerable seals, and if it was 3 times, there had to be 40 to 50 heavenly venerable seals that he had obtained. Ling Han's great luck was already shocking enough, yet now he still only had 14 heavenly venerable seals, and 7 among them were the more widely known heavenly venerable seals, which was something that practically every single heavenly venerate possessed, so they could not be counted. They were both in the second tier, but the gap between them was quite wide. Come, let's go take a look then. Ling Han immediately decided. He really would like to see who, besides himself, could be so freakish. Ling Han did not call over the empress, Hunyou, and the others, and directly set out with Rong Yang. He did not fear that Rong Yang was trying to trick him, because he could traverse freely through the Genesis world, so who could stop him? Of course, Hysteria was also a party that could not be overlooked. It seemed to have set its eyes on him, and he kept encountering it in the void. After journeying for a few months, they arrived on top of a great mountain. There were a great many people gathered here, and they were all heavenly venerates. Ling Han was surprised. The present world was in complete chaos, and even heavenly venerates were all fearing for themselves. Why had so many people still come out, and so boldly and publicly at that? However, once Rong Yang explained, Ling Han understood the reason. That was because all the heavenly venerates here came from powerful backgrounds. Either they had fathers or grandfathers who were 5th tier or 6th tier heavenly venerates, or it was their master or grand elder that was an elite of this level. As long as there was no power that could kill them all in one fell swoop, there only had to be one that managed to escape, and those heavenly venerates would unite in vengeance. What force in this world would be able to stand against that? Of course, if any of them were caught alone, it would be hard to say. Ling Han saw a great many energetic, young heavenly venerates who had only been cultivating for 1 to 2 epochs, and there were some even younger that had only been cultivating for tens of billions of years, yet they had already advanced to the 2nd tier or even 3rd tier, which was truly extraordinary. He couldn't help but feel rueful. Though the world was completely chaotic, this had also led to the rise of a great many prodigies. However, wasn't it said that there were only over a dozen people fighting? The number of people here was not just a dozen, but at least over 100. Even Rong Yang was a little stunned. Previously, there had indeed been only over a dozen of them fighting here. Probably many people went to ask for help, unwilling to resign themselves to being deceived by Meng Dong, and wanted to win back their pride. In fact, they may even be having designs on those heavenly venerable seals that Meng Dong obtained, Rong Yang guessed. Ling Han nodded. That was at least 40 to 50 heavenly venerable seals, and even he was slightly tempted whether he should commit a murder and robbery. Rong Yang, is this the helper that you have invited? A yellow-robed young man walked over. He had a lanky build, and the aura exuding from him had also reached the 4th tier. Rong Yang nodded. He is Ling Han. Ling Han? The yellow-robed young man showed a hint of surprise. The Ling Han who broke records at the realm battlefield? That's him. Rong Yang nodded. Huh, Brother Ling, I am Qiu Jian. The yellow-robed young man clasped his hands in greeting towards Ling Han. I have long since heard of your name. Since he was treating him politely, Ling Han would naturally not behave arrogantly either. He nodded, and also greeted him. Brother Qiu Jian. While they were chatting here, it also attracted the people around them. When they heard the legendary Ling Han was here, a great many people were intrigued. After all, the record that Ling Han had set in the past had really never been achieved before, and it was extremely possible that no one would ever match it. However, some newly promoted heavenly venerates expressed disdain towards Ling Han. They had only heard of Ling Han's legends, but had not witnessed his feats personally. Thus, their attitude was to doubt everything, and they thought that they themselves were the strongest. Ling Han, do you dare to fight us? Someone immediately issued a challenge towards Ling Han. This was a 2nd-tier heavenly venerate. He was indeed very extraordinary. He had only been cultivating for 10 billion years, and he had already reached this level. Merely in terms of speed, he really had surpassed Ling Han by who knew how many times. Hence, he looked down on Ling Han very much. A 2nd tier who had only reached this level in over an epoch? That was so weak. I, too, wish to fight with this legendary prodigy, another heavenly venerate said. He was only a 1st-tier heavenly venerate, but the fight could begin after they suppressed their cultivation levels, so even if there was a big gap in cultivation level, it was no great issue. Me too. This was another heavenly venerate, a 2nd-tier heavenly venerate as well. Challengers stepped out one after another, and there were as many as over a dozen of them. They all wanted to become famous by stepping on Ling Han's shoulders. After all, Ling Han had indeed left behind a legend in the realm battlefield in the past. Ling Han smiled. The main lead was not even here yet, and there were already people ready to present him with some heavenly venerable seals? He deliberately revealed a troubled expression. There is only one of me, but there are over a dozen of you. With how hesitant he seemed, everyone thought that he was afraid. This is not a group battle. We are going to fight one by one. That's right, we are not going to bully you. Do you dare? The people who had previously provoked him all exclaimed, wanting to egg Ling Han on to fight. Ling Han considered again, and then nodded. All right then. Those people who had challenged him were all overjoyed, but then Ling Han continued, however, I fear my divine might would scare you guys off. Thus, anyone who wants to challenge or fight me should step out and sever their heavenly venerable seals first. I am afraid that you guys will not be fighting later. This was his real motive. Otherwise, if he blasted a fighter to bits with just a single punch, would the others still dare to fight him? Who would be afraid? Those fighters all declared, their heads raised high. Chapter 2841, 2841 Tricked. 2841 Tricked. Rong Yang couldn't help but shake his head, and gained a new awareness of how black-hearted Ling Han could be. Fuck, this guy really had a string of tricks ready for others. Rong Yang felt extreme sympathy for these rookies. Later, they would definitely be beaten down to the point that they lost all confidence in themselves. But who asked them to be so self-centered and think that only they were the strongest in this world? This could be considered paying a price to learn a precious lesson. All right, I will be the referee, a fourth-tier elite said. His name was Zhuang Bai, and his cultivation level was the peak stage of the fourth tier. He was also the one with the highest cultivation level here. In an all-out battle, even Ling Han might not be his match. A fight naturally had to have rules. Every person who fought would have to sever a heavenly venerable seal from their mind in advance, and one of the more widely known 7 seals was definitely not accepted. They were really everywhere, so who would need them? But heavenly venerable seals could only be transmitted, and could not be taught, so how could others know that the heavenly venerable seal severed was one of the more widely known 7 seals? Simple. One only had to sever that heavenly venerable seal first, and then display those 7 seals. Though their display would be very blurred, who had not mastered these 7 seals? No matter how fuzzy they were, they could still be sensed. All of them severed a heavenly venerable seal each, and sealed it in a unique stone. Otherwise, there was nothing that could contain a heavenly venerable seal. Ling Han was no exception. He thought for a moment, and then severed the 9th seal. It could not be helped. The only 9th grade seals he had were the more widely known 7 seals, and what was left after that was 8th grade seals. Everyone sealed the heavenly venerable seals in a stone slab. They could not be stored for too long. After all, they had already been severed. However, it was completely possible for them to last for the period of time needed for a few fights. These stone slabs were secured by Zhuang Bai, and there were also a great many heavenly venerates who would stand guard, so there was no need to worry that Zhuang Bai would embezzle it. Otherwise, there would be no further need to stay in this circle in the future. Who's first? Ling Han swept an eye at those more than dozen challengers. Me. Me. I'll do it. Everyone was scrambling over each other. Ling Han had only severed a heavenly venerable seal, and who knew just how many he had? If they were too late, wouldn't there be none left? Ling Han chuckled. No need to be so troublesome. All of you can fight at the same time, and I can also save myself some time. Without waiting for these people to agree, Ling Han moved first. Peng, peng, peng. He threw 14 punches in a row, and those challengers were all sent flying, completely losing all power to battle. Done and dealt with, Ling Han clapped his hands, walking towards Zhuang Bai. Since he had won, he naturally had to retrieve his reward. Everyone was surprised and shocked by Ling Han's mad barrage of blows. No one managed to even react. Though they had all heard how powerful Ling Han was, and how he was a freak that had broken records, no one had expected that he would really be as strong as this. Those were 14 heavenly venerates, and they had all suppressed their cultivation level to the 1st tier, so this was a battle of equal cultivation levels, and they still couldn't even withstand a single blow? Ling Han took 15 stone slabs in total from Zhuang Bai, and opened them one after another, absorbing the heavenly venerable seals that were sealed within into his mind. He immediately began comprehension. If he could not quickly master these seals, they would very soon disappear. Including the 9th seal that he himself had severed, he would have to comprehend them one by one. Since he had already severed it, there would not be the slightest bit of memory left of it, and comprehending it again would not be any faster. Those heavenly venerates that had been sent flying all gradually got back to their feet. They were all looking at Ling Han indignantly. They had failed from the get-go. The main lead, Meng, was not even here yet, and they had already lost a battle. How would they have any more confidence to face Meng? Ling Han sat on the sidelines, focusing on comprehending these newly obtained heavenly venerable seals. He discovered that, aside from that 9th seal of his, what the others had actually taken out were actually all 9th grade seals as well. They were not the more widely known 7 seals, but every level of heavenly venerable seals would have 111 of them. Hence, aside from the more widely known 7 seals, there were another 104 heavenly venerable seals which had boosting effects of less than 10. However, Ling Han was unconcerned, because he was ambitious, and wanted to comprehend 999 heavenly venerable seals. Naturally, he would not mind the level of the heavenly venerable seal. Of course, it would definitely be better if he could get higher grade seals now. He boosted his divine sense with regulations of time, and his divine sense channeled at high speed. Merely in over a dozen days, he had already mastered these seals at a preliminary level, but to completely master them was definitely not something that would only take a few days. Shockingly, he discovered that when he strung these seals together, there were actually 5 that could resonate. Combination seals. Unfortunately, even if 5 ninth grade heavenly venerable seals were combined together, the boost they could provide would only be a mere 13 times, which was still less than any 8th grade heavenly venerable seal that he had. It was fine. Now, there were 5 combination seals, and this could expand to 10, 50, or 100 seals in the future. Furthermore, when he cultivated, the more heavenly venerable seals he had, the better, and only in battle would he need a seal with great explosive power. Since he had the time, he continued cultivating. Right at this moment, the main lead finally arrived. An overwhelming aura surged out. Pung! A figure also descended from the skies. He did not control his power at all, and when he landed, he crashed ruthlessly into the great mountain. Pung! This great mountain was instantly shattered with a loud boom. Aside from devouring metal in its complete state, was there anything else that could withstand the power of heavenly venerable tier? Instantly, everyone rose into the air. Ling Han was also forced to interrupt his comprehension. He frowned. He had just been cultivating peacefully, so who had disturbed him? Meng, quite a number of people shouted, looking towards that domineering guy. Meng was a young man with a strong, heavy build. He looked around, his eyes filled with carelessness. He was clearly only a 2nd-tier heavenly venerate, yet his appearance still caused a great many 4th-tier heavenly venerates to feel wariness. Very good. With so many people here, I am sure that I will be able to obtain even more heavenly venerable seals. He laughed loudly, seemingly brimming with confidence. Arrogance, someone immediately declared disdainfully. Meng looked over, and beckoned with a hand gesture. Do you dare to fight? For trash like you, I can accept stakes of 1 to 10. How about it? That man instantly looked tempted. The stakes were 1 to 10. He only had to win once, and he would be able to win 10 heavenly venerable seals. Where else would he find a deal as good as that? All right, I will fight you. He severed a single heavenly venerable seal, and Meng did indeed sever 10. The two of them began their battle afterwards, but that man was no match for Meng at all. In a few moves, he was defeated. Meng sneered, walked over, and took the spoils of the battle that belonged to him. However, he did not stow it into his mind, but rather swept an eye over his surroundings. Is there anyone else here who wishes to fight? It's still the same stakes, 1 to 10. Forget about 2nd tier, I can't be bothered to bully them. Any 3rd tiers? You do not have to suppress your cultivation level, and I will play around with you guys. Originally, there were some 2nd and 1st tiers that were moving restlessly. They all had the invincible aptitude within their respective cultivation levels, but they were certain that they could not match a 3rd tier with just 2nd tier power. Hence, they naturally did not dare step out to take the challenge. Is there no one? This is truly disappointing. Meng shook his head. Then I will relax the rules even further. You guys can add on a few more people, and even 10 is no problem. Meng you are too arrogant. Zhuangbai exclaimed. Chapter 2842, 2842 Meng 2842 Meng Meng glanced at Zhuangbai, and said smilingly, You are a peak stage 4th tier, and I am no match for you for now. These were honest words, but Zhuangbai was not pleased at all hearing them from Meng Wasn't this implying that Zhuangbai would very quickly be surpassed? Facing a second tier being so disrespectful in front of him, a fourth tier, he was outraged. But so what? Though Meng Dong was not his match, there wasn't much of a difference between them in strength. At most, Zhuang Bai would only be able to wound him, and there was no way he could inflict serious injury on his opponent, so it was natural that his opponent could act arrogant in front of him. Meng Dong, are your previous words serious? A third-tier heavenly Venerate asked. Of course, Meng Dong replied proudly. Alright, count me in. This third tier stepped out. Count me in as well. Another third tier stepped out. Me too. One after another, there were soon 10 of them. Very good, come fight me. Meng Dong took out 10 stone slabs which had heavenly venerable seals sealed within them, and tossed them casually over to Zhuang Bai. Those 10 third tiers also served a heavenly venerable seal from their minds respectively, and sealed them in special stones, which they then handed over to Zhuang Bai. If they won, each of them would be able to win a single heavenly venerable seal, and if they lost, the 10 heavenly venerable seals would all belong to Meng Dong. Begin, Zhuang Bai announced. The 10 third-tier heavenly venerates immediately moved. However, they soon paled in shock because Meng Dong's battle prowess far exceeded their imagination. The moment they started fighting, he had already laid absolute claim to the upper hand. They fought back with great effort, using all kinds of powerful techniques, but it was completely useless under the suppression of absolute strength. Very quickly, they were all defeated. Thanks, Meng Dong said smilingly. Those 10 third-tier heavenly venerates could only look livid. Having lost when there were 10 third tiers fighting against a single second-tier heavenly venerate, what else could they say? Anyone else? Meng Dong asked with a grin. No one answered. There were not many that could suppress Meng Dong even among fourth tiers, and it was clear that Meng Dong could not possibly agree to fight with this kind of elites. Ha ha ha, if no one is going to fight, there will be no need for me to come here next time. Meng Dong shook his head, looking at everyone with a gaze filled with disdain. Everyone was extremely displeased. Any single one of them could be considered to have succeeded in youth, and someone was treating them with such disdain now. It would be strange if they did not feel displeased. I don't mean to look down on you guys, but you people are truly a bunch of trash. Meng Dong laughed loudly, turned around, and was just about to stride off. I'll have a fight with you. A voice suddenly rang out. Meng Dong turned his head, and looked towards the speaker. Involuntarily, he was surprised. A second tier? Ha, do you have confidence in yourself that is off the charts, or has your head been kicked by a donkey? Ling Han smiled calmly. Aren't you a second tier yourself as well? Previously, he had not spoken at all, because he was still comprehending those 15 heavenly venerable seals, but thinking of how he was going to fight Meng Dong, he would definitely have to sever a few heavenly venerable seals, so what was the need for him to go the extra mile? Meng Dong was surprised. He couldn't help but laugh out loud. That's right. I am indeed a second tier, but could it be that you did not see what happened just now? Even 10 third tiers joining forces are no match for me. Ling Han nodded. I did see, which is why I think that you should be able to become my opponent. Meng Dong's eyes involuntarily narrowed. Having cultivated to the heavenly venerable tier, which one of them would have a head that was kicked silly by a donkey? Thus, Ling Han clearly knew that Meng Dong possessed strength that could suppress the third tier, yet still dared to challenge him, so he had to also be a supreme freakish genius himself. All right, come fight me. Meng Dong casually tossed out 10 stone slabs sealed with heavenly venerable seals. The same rules, stakes of 1 to 10. There is no need to take advantage of you, we'll go with stakes of 10 to 10. Ling Han also tossed out 10 stone slabs. Everyone gave an "oh," stunned by Ling Han's generosity. Of course, there were also a few people that were secretly muttering that Ling Han was an idiot. He clearly could have gone with stakes of 1 to 10. However, what they did not know was that Ling Han was filled with confidence in himself, so what difference would there be for him to take out 1 or 10 seals? You're very confident. Meng Dong declared, his eyes narrowed. As humans, if we do not have confidence in ourselves, what meaning would there be left? Ling Han countered. That's right. One should have more confidence in themselves. Meng Dong laughed loudly. Let's fight then. The two of them handed the heavenly venerable seals over to Zhuang Bai, and then rose into the air, standing with a distance of 300 meters between them. For heavenly venerates, this bit of gap could be considered completely non-existent. Just by raising their hand and delivering a strike, this distance could be breached. I hope you truly have some strength, and won't disappoint me, Meng Dong said. So do I. Ling Han said. Then, get ready to face this strike. Meng Dong moved, and delivered a palm strike towards Ling Han. Pung! As Ling Han exchanged a punch with him, a powerful shock wave surged out. Both of them retreated, and they were practically equal in strength. In this instant, both their expressions became serious. Their opponent's power was not inferior to their own. Ling Han was stunned. Indeed, he was not the only one who could battle with a disadvantage of 2 cultivation levels. This Meng Dong's freakish talent was actually superior to even the empress because the empress could not battle with a disadvantage of 2 cultivation levels. However, what he did not know was that Meng Dong was even more shocked because Meng Dong's cultivation level was peak stage 2nd tier. Though it was hard to decide who was stronger between the two of them in this exchange, one of them was in the early stage of the 2nd tier, yet the other was in the peak stage of the 2nd tier. Was this not enough to show the problem? Interesting. Meng Dong looked at Ling Han, fighting spirit burning hotly in his eyes. He already knew that he was slightly inferior to Ling Han, but he was not discouraged, because the clash between heavenly venerates was not a pure clash of cultivation level and power. The secret techniques and seals they had mastered were also a factor. Hence, though the level of his power and Ling Han's was presently equal, if he truly went all out, the gap would be abruptly widened. Meng Dong had a resolute nature, and immediately channeled a heavenly venerable seal. At the same time, he was also channeling a secret technique. With a light roar, he took in a long, drawn-out breath, and the mystical power of heaven and earth was manipulated by him before spurting out violently. Xiao, xiao, xiao. Countless weapons shot out of his mouth, charging towards Ling Han in a barrage. Fuck. Ling Han's face instantly darkened. He did not care whether Meng Dong had done it deliberately or otherwise, but wasn't he spitting at him now? A battle was a battle, so was it really appropriate of you to spit at your opponent like this? Bastard. Ling Han roared in fury. He charged towards Meng Dong, and threw a punch, fists of fury already being deployed, as well as being boosted by the 14th seal, so his power increased to 29 times. Peng, 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 peng. Countless weapons were demolished by Ling Han, and he appeared to be invincible. Meng Dong couldn't help but feel stunned. This battle prowess was truly overbearing and vicious, and even he would have to dodge. He was very decisive, and instantly retreated, refraining from a full-on confrontation with Ling Han. However, he was still non-stop spitting from his mouth. Golden swords, silver spears, halberds, daggers, and the like were all barraging Ling Han madly. To spit at your opponent to cause disgust, I have never seen someone as shameless as you, Ling Han exclaimed angrily. When these words fell, Meng Dong's face darkened as well. What do you mean by, spit at your opponent to cause disgust? This was his heavenly venerate technique, that 10,000 weapons technique, an ultimate technique that he had invented. He could use it without using his hands or legs, so it could be considered incredibly practical. Of course, if he spat too much, it was inevitable that a bit of saliva would be spurted out as well, but just how much was this amount? Moreover, every single inch of skin and hair of a heavenly venerate was a supreme treasure, and saliva was greatly nutritious too. It was refreshingly fragrant like a great herb, so how could it be called disgusting? Damn you! Meng Dong was also infuriated as well, spitting out saliva, no, spitting out weapons even more intensely. Chapter 2843 So you too are. Meng Dong was very aggressive. He did have a basis to be forceful. He was a second tier who already possessed strength that could match a fourth tier, and just how many of such prodigies actually existed in the entire Genesis world? Did even Lin Youlian, Xian Chihu, and Wu Haoyang have such strength in the past? This kind of prodigy should have been famous throughout the world, yet it was like he suddenly popped out of a crack in the ground. No one knew his background at all. All they knew was that his name was Meng Dong. Perhaps even Meng Dong was just his alias. But faced with Ling Han, Meng Dong was actually at a disadvantage, retreating continuously under Ling Han's mad barrage of fists of fury. Charge! He roared in fury, his mouth spitting out various types of weapons non-stop. This was extremely terrifying. Even a third-tier heavenly Venerate could be insta-killed, but Ling Han could forcefully shatter the weapons that were launched at him with just a single punch. He drew a precious tool. It was an ancient mirror, with 7 seals flickering within, and exuding a blinding brilliance. Ling Han couldn't help but close his eyes. This light had very strong destructive power to the eyes physically, and even a powerful heavenly Venerate like himself could not look at it directly. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Meng Dong charged over, sending a palm strike right at Ling Han's head. The air of primal chaos descended, and it was like he was a demonic god. This heavenly Venerate tool was not an attack type, but rather a supplementary type, which showed just how great Meng Dong's confidence in himself was. The heavenly Venerate tool was only a supplementary tool, and he himself had strength that could suppress everything. Ling Han released a battle cry. He did not draw the divine demon sword, but rather waved his fists in a powerful attack. From a certain angle, his battle prowess when using fists of fury was superior to when he used the divine demon sword because he could only strike out powerfully with his force when he was using the divine demon sword, but the fists of fury was a secret technique that he had invented himself, so it could boost his battle prowess to a greater degree. Under the shining brilliance of that blazing light, Ling Han really couldn't see anything. Not only could he not open his eyes because of this light, but even his divine sense was cut off. If it did not have this kind of effect, this supplementary type precious tool would be too useless. Ling Han was completely throwing punches based on his battle instincts. His skin could feel the force behind blows, and his sense of danger allowed him to react in the most logical way. Pung! 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 The two of them battled intensely, going all out in every single move, bent on defeating their opponent. All around them, people were watching anxiously. They had extremely complicated feelings. They hoped that Meng Dong could lose just once, but at the same time, if Meng Dong lost, that would mean the degree of Ling Han's freakish talent was superior to even Meng Dong's, and this was even more unbelievable for them. However, no matter how complicated their feelings were, it could not have the slightest effect on the battle situation. Ling Han was gradually getting the upper hand. "Looks like I have underestimated you," Meng Dong said, light of intelligence flickering in his eyes. Ling Han smiled slightly. "Yet I have overestimated you. Just that bit of strength is not worthy of making you my opponent." "What wild boasting!" Meng Dong sneered. The seals flickering on his body suddenly dispersed, and 3 seals on his chest lit up at the same time instead, instantly causing his battle prowess to spike madly. Boom! He struck out with a palm, and even the heaven and earth were trembling. "Combination seals?" Ling Han asked casually. "That's right, they can boost my battle prowess to 32 times. Meng Dong declared proudly. Ling Han laughed. "You are not the only one to have mastered combination seals." He, too, dispersed the 9th seal that was presently activated, and he channeled the 4 directions seals as replacement, and his power began to spike wildly as well. 39 times. Previously, Meng Dong's battle prowess was already slightly weaker than Ling Han's, and now a great gap had appeared in their power again, so he was naturally even more inferior to Ling Han now. Originally, he was only at a slight disadvantage, yet now he was at a clear disadvantage, and anyone could tell this with a single glance. If things went on like this, Meng Dong would lose. Not bad, you are truly not bad. Looks like this powerful move of mine must be used on you. Meng Dong laughed loudly. He suddenly stretched out his right hand, and grabbed over at Ling Han. This hand grew exponentially in size, as if it had turned into a piece of the heaven and earth. Destructive heavenly origin, he called out inwardly. Boom! The large hand descended, and everyone felt a boundless feeling of repression rise up in their hearts, as if even their souls were about to be forcefully ripped apart. What kind of technique was this? How could it cause such pressure even on heavenly venerates? Ling Han also felt an indescribable pain, feeling as if even his head was about to explode, but right in the next instant, a power suddenly surged inside his body, and expelled this feeling of pressure completely. He had no time to wonder where this power had come from. He hurriedly threw a punch in response to that giant hand. Pung! This giant hand was blown up with a single punch from him. Setting aside that repressed feeling, this move was only very strong, but not overwhelmingly so. Meng Dong showed a hint of disbelief. In fact, he even stopped. He could not accept the fact that this strike from him had failed. But after only an instant, realization dawned on him. So you, too, are what? Ling Han was surprised, and asked, why don't you finish your words? Meng Dong nodded, yet said, hee, it is no wonder you do not know, because you have not awakened yet. No rush, no rush. When there comes a day that you understand, there will naturally be no need for me to explain anything. What did these confusing words mean? Ling Han frowned. Speak clearly. Consider this win yours, little brother. Meng Dong forfeited the battle, and directly turned around and left. With a single step, he crossed 500 kilometers, and then his voice floated towards him slowly. I forfeit. The words that he had previously spoken had been directly communicated to Ling Han's mind via divine sense, and only these last words, I forfeit, were directly spoken out loud, which everyone heard. Meng Dong had lost. Though everyone had expected this, hearing Meng Dong admit it personally would still incite some surprise because he could actually still last for a very long time with his condition. Furthermore, once he endured Ling Han's burst of power, who knew what changes would take place in the battle situation? Who knew, maybe it would be Meng Dong that was stronger when the next heavenly venerable seal lit up, right? Ling Han stood motionless and silent. He was pondering the words that Meng Dong had said. What did he mean? Judging by his tone, it seemed like they should know each other, and were in the same group. But Ling Han definitely did not think that he had encountered Meng Dong before. He could swear to the heaven and earth. Strange, the events that had taken place recently were all too bizarre. For some reason, Ling Han could not control his own divine sense, and actually entered into the void when he had been breaking through to the second tier, and even encountered hysteria. Moreover, he had also gained the ability to devour the life essence of a dead heavenly venerate, and a mysterious power had even arisen within his body just now. He could not explain all of this, but it seemed. Perhaps Meng Dong would understand. Ling Han did not pursue him. The other party's strength was not much weaker than his own, and he would not be able to force out answers from him. Moreover, it was clear that Meng Dong had no intention to take the initiative to explain things to him at present. He turned around, and walked towards Zhuang Bai. He had best retrieve the heavenly venerable seals he had won first. Everyone looked on, all feeling envious. Those were 20 heavenly venerable seals. Some already wanted to make a move, but they still forcefully suppressed the urge. They could not break the rules here. Otherwise, would there be others who would want to fight in future? Ling Han sat down on the sidelines first, and then completely refined all 20 heavenly venerable seals. With the passing of time, they would disperse if he did not do so. Others began to fight as well. Without a monster like Meng Dong, there was finally no one that would cause further disturbance. Of course, now that Ling Han had replaced him, it was probable that there would be no one that would want to fight him. Chapter 2844, Mending the 14th Seal. Since there was no one else to fight, Ling Han could only leave, helplessly. Rong Yang expressed much gratitude towards him for resolving a great problem like Meng Dong. From now onwards, the grudge between Rong clan and Ling Han, and Ling city, was considered settled. Ling Han knew that this was because his potential was too terrifying, so the Rong clan was willing to give him some face. Of course, if it were not for the fact that he had the Lin clan backing him up, they would definitely have just directly crushed him into the dust. Because they could not kill him now, and were also wary of his future strength, it would be better to settle things peacefully, and turn an enemy into a friend. Ling Han was fine with this. In any case, the main culprits, Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate and Rong Xinkuan, had already been killed, so if they wanted to become friends instead of enemies with him, then so be it. When there are other fights in the future, remember to invite me, Ling Han said laughingly. Rong Yang's expression involuntarily darkened. If he really brought Ling Han to more fights in the future, he would definitely be cursed out by the others, just like how Meng Dong had been. Just how many people would he bring to ruin? Hee, of course, of course. Rong Yang said half-heartedly, but he had already made his decision. He definitely could not take Ling Han to participate in this kind of event in future. Ling Han did not give up. I might be busy sometimes, so my wife could go as well. Rong Yang's expression was even darker. It was not that he had never fought the empress before. Though she was a second tier, she was strong enough to match a third tier. She, too, was a super freak. Rong Yang sent off Ling Han like he was sending off a bringer of misfortune. It would be best for him not to have too much contact with this kind of cunning guy. Just like this, Ling Han returned to Ling City. On the surface, he was all smiles and cheery. He had obtained 20 heavenly venerable seals on this trip, which could be considered to be great profit. However, there was a hidden worry lying at the depths of his heart. Just what was going on with his body? He did not tell anyone about this matter. He began seclusion, digesting those 20 heavenly venerable seals, but after refining them, he discovered that 3 of these seals were duplicates. Thus, he immediately severed them again, and transmitted them to the empress. In this manner, the number of heavenly venerable seals he now possessed was as many as 35, but the newly obtained seals were all 9th grade seals. Bunch of cheapskates. However, after piecing them together, those 5 combination seals had actually increased to 9. If they were channeled simultaneously, the boost to his power would reach as much as 26 times, and this was considered 7th grade. Not bad at all. Ling Han nodded. 9th grade seals would have the advantage of 9th grade seals and that was that everyone did not value them too much. They were also the most common ones, and it was possible that they would become the first combination seals that he would successfully piece back together. Just think about it. 9 seals would boost his battle prowess by 26 times, then when 110 of them were all collected? Just how many times would they boost his battle prowess? 1,000? 10,000? Ling Han couldn't help but feel expectant, but it was not clear just how long it would take before this day came. No one was an idiot. If he battled and won repeatedly, who would still come to fight him? It is no wonder that so many have started to walk the path of robbery and murder. There is no need for rules, and one would be able to take possession of the seals that others have earnestly comprehended through much difficulty for themselves. It is indeed the fastest way to improve oneself. At present, I can refine other heavenly venerates, and snatch all of their cultivation level and seals. For me, this is a massive temptation, and even I can't help but be tempted to take this shortcut. However, would this kind of forceful robbery of others' cultivation level really help me to climb to the pinnacle? Ling Han thought that this was too uncertain. What one robbed was ultimately not what they had obtained through their own cultivation. Perhaps, for a short while, there would be a visible soaring of cultivation level and strength, but after a long period of time, the hidden problem of having unstable foundations would be exposed. It would be better to take it one step at a time. Ling Han spent tens of thousands of years, and finally mastered all his newly gained heavenly venerable seals completely, turning them into his own, and only then did he come out of seclusion. In the outside world, the Rong clan had already joined in alliance with the Lin clan. In the case of the Ying clan, it had yet to be confirmed because the Ying clan's appetite was too big. They actually wanted the princess of the Lin clan to marry into the Ying clan. Even Lin Xiaoyang could not decide this matter. Lin Yulian was Lin Luo's favorite daughter, and if she herself was not willing, who would dare to force her? When the news spread out, everyone was saying that the Ying clan was shameless. Lin Yulian was the strongest prodigy of eternity, and it was only a matter of time before she advanced to the 7th tier, and she might even get as far as 7th tier in the future. You, a 6th tier force, actually dared to have designs on a supreme elite that would be a 7th tier in the future? Weren't they shameless? Hence, the alliance with the Ying clan continued to be delayed. On the other side, the matter of Lin Piaoxue marrying Rong Yang was also proven to be just a rumor. Who was Lin Xiaoyang? He was the son of a 7th tier, and he himself was also a 6th tier. Would he be so short-sighted, and use his own daughter to trade for an alliance? Because this alliance was centered around the Lin clan, and added with the fact that Lin Luo was also a 7th tier, this alliance was called the Lin Alliance. To be honest, Ling Han and the others were also members of this Lin Alliance, but their strength appeared quite negligible. Heavenly Venerates were still dying, but because the majority of Heavenly Venerates had now gathered together in alliances, the number of deaths had also greatly decreased. It was very rare for battles to start between alliances should both of them fight so hard that they were both damaged severely. It was possible that a third party could swoop in and take advantage of their weakness to eliminate them. This would be paving the way for someone else for nothing. In this manner, the world was showing signs of becoming peaceful. The world had always been like this, Chaz returning to peace, and peace overturned by chaos. Ling Han began another long period of seclusion. In any case, he was idle at the moment. As he cultivated, he attempted to mend the 14th seal. In its incomplete state, it already had a boost of 29 times, so it was extremely likely that it would be a high-level seal of the 6th grade or even 5th grade once it was mended. He continued to communicate with the heaven and earth, extracting void particle energy to mend the 14th seal. The progress was extremely slow, but there was indeed some progress. Heavenly Venerable seals were superior to regulations. They were means that a Heavenly Venerate used to communicate with the fundamental power of the Genesis world in the first place, so it was natural that they could be mended with the 6 great fundamental powers. Ling Han couldn't help but feel rueful. If he attained the 7th tier, he would be able to extract the 6 elements at the same time with just a wave of his hand, so the efficiency of mending a Heavenly Venerable seal would definitely increase a great many times over. 700 million years passed, and the repair of this seal was halfway done. It could provide a boost up to 32 times. Another 2 billion years later, the repair had reached 3/4 of completion, providing a boost of 39 times. Merely this was already equal to the 4 direction seals, and this was just a single seal. This was astonishing. Ling Han couldn't help but feel expectant. If he advanced to the 3rd tier, would an even more powerful seal appear automatically before him? Another 4 billion years later, the 14th seal was finally fully mended, providing a boost that leapt straight to 47 times. This was a 5th grade seal. If Ling Han could obtain even more 5th grade seals, what kind of astonishing effects would combining them bring? He really wanted to fight higher-level Heavenly Venerates. Ling Han felt rueful. However, his present battle prowess could just barely match peak stage 4th tier. Should he encounter a 5th tier, he would definitely be done for, so it would be best that he did not go and deliver gifts. He came out of seclusion and discovered that Hunyou had already broken through to the 3rd tier. Meanwhile, the empress had also refined the 3 Heavenly Venerable seals he had given to her, and what was even more pleasantly surprising to him was that his daughter had actually returned. Already? In the past, he had spent a whole epoch to finally complete extracting the power of dimension of 999 dimensions, which was as far as he could go. Afterwards, he shattered his core of power, and only then did he manage to take another step forward, turning his body itself into a model of the Genesis world, and cutting out an even wider path for himself. Why had Ling Shi already reached the limit after cultivating for around 10 billion years only? Chapter 2845 Primitive Dimension. 2845 Primitive Dimension. Ling Shi had already obtained the best conditions in the world before she was even born. Both her parents were heavenly venerates, her natural aptitude was excellent, and she had only been born after the empress had gone through close to 100 million years of pregnancy, absorbing enough heavenly venerable to nutrition, and already being a celestial king upon her birth. Just how amazing was this? Ling Han had also retrieved a small world and instilled it into her body. Not only could she then have a burst of pseudo-heavenly venerable tier battle prowess at any time, she could also study the power of dimension constantly. How great was that? Under such excellent conditions, Ling Shi had reached her limits after only spending around 10 billion years? Ling Han could not believe it. "Precious daughter, why have you returned so quickly?" he asked hurriedly. "Father, I have decided not to walk the path that you and mother have walked," Ling Shi said. Though her voice was gentle and calm, there was a firmness that said no one could change her mind, which resembled Ling Han. Ling Han sighed. He himself was that kind of person, so he had no plans on convincing her otherwise. Instead, he asked, "What kind of path will it be?" "I plan to turn the small world inside my body into a true dimension," Ling Shi said. "I have a feeling that this will be stronger than if I extracted the power of dimension from 10, or even over 100 dimensions." Ling Han did not speak, pondering the possibility and future prospects of this kind of path. Facts had proven that those like the Empress who had directly extracted the power of dimension of various dimensions and fused it into a core were not as strong as Ling Han, who was nurturing various dimensions within his body. But Ling Han's situation was too unique. Even if others wanted to take the same path, it would not be possible. They would only destroy themselves. However, in Ling Shi's case, she had had a small world implanted in her from the very beginning, and it would slowly develop into a dimension. This was more or less the same as hysteria, judging from a certain angle. However bright her future would be, how far she could develop this dimension would depend on her own abilities. Low level? Medium level? High level? Or a transcendent dimension? This was very important. It was equivalent to a first tier possessing the power of dimension of a whole dimension, which could still grow exponentially, and this was very astounding. Of course, this could not be compared to Ling Han. What was nurtured inside his own body was an entire Genesis world. Precisely because of this, Ling Han's progress was overwhelmingly slow. Who knew how long it would take for him to take another step forward? However, the increase to his battle prowess with every step forward would also be exceedingly great. This was not about him, it was about his daughter. Ling Han nodded slowly. "This is a path that you have chosen yourself. Since you have made your decision, you must resolutely and determinately continue on this path." "I know." Ling Shi nodded. After a slight pause, she continued, "That's right, father. There is someone that I would like you to meet." Ling Han glanced at his daughter, and couldn't help but feel a sense of alarm rise up in his heart. Fuck, there was a sliver of romantic sentiment hidden in his daughter's expression. Not good, his daughter was about to be snatched. Damn it, who was this damn brat? "All right, let that bra boy come," he said, suppressing his anger. Ling Shi smiled lightly with pursed lips. Very soon, she brought over a young man. Ling Han was surprised. Originally, he had thought that the one who had gained Ling Shi's notice had to be in the heavenly venerable tier, at the very least, but this young man only had a cultivation level that was equivalent to the immortal palace tier, and his strength could be considered extremely weak. "My name is Fu Tianqing." "Greetings, sir." This young man clasped his hands in respectful greeting towards Ling Han. He was polite yet neither haughty nor humble, appearing to have very good bearing. "Interesting." Even if Ling Han had kept his aura under wraps now, to say nothing of an immortal palace tier, even celestial kings would feel weak in his presence as they were completely overwhelmed by his aura. They would not even be able to articulately speak, and would definitely not be as calm as this guy in front of him. Ling Han felt a sense of approval for this young man, but he immediately warned himself mentally that this was the man that intended to snatch his daughter away. It would not be wrong to even consider him his enemy. He made close queries about Fu Tianqing's past, and discovered that the latter actually had had similar experiences as Ling Han. He, too, had come by opening the sky of a small world, and had only used several million years to attain the immortal palace tier, which was very, very extraordinary. Because of Ling Shi's gentle suggestion that did not accept refusal from him, Ling Han accepted Fu Tianqing as a disciple. He gritted his teeth. Wasn't this just welcoming the wolf into his own home, making it even more convenient for Fu Tianqing to court his daughter? But it was not good to keep a daughter with him now that she was grown up. Fu Tianqing was really very extraordinary. With the pouring of a great volume of resources, he swiftly advanced to the celestial king tier in just a million years, advancing so fiercely that even Lu Yutong and the other women clicked their tongues in amazement. This brat was not all that handsome, but his bearing was amazing, graceful and polite, so all the women had high expectations for him, and treated him like he already was their son-in-law, which also caused Ling Han to almost yell with fury. Another 100 million years passed, and Fu Tianqing had already advanced to the 9th heaven. Even though he had a later start, he had already surpassed Ling Han's other disciples, and breaking through to the heavenly venerable tier was close at hand. With this kind of son-in-law, Ling Han actually should be quite satisfied, but whenever he thought that his beautiful daughter would be married off to this brat, he always felt the temptation to brutally beat Fu Tianqing up. Right at this moment, Ling Han received a message from Lin Xiaoyang, asking him to visit the Lin clan immediately. Ling Han set out as soon as he received the message. Aside from himself, Zhou Heng and Chu Hao were also present. I just received some news that a primitive dimension has appeared inside the void, Lin Xiaoyang said. What? Both Zhou Heng and Chu Hao instantly stood. How is that possible? The void should be unable to accommodate anything. The expressions of both the great 6th tier elites changed drastically due to their great shock. That is indeed the truth. Lin Xiaoyang nodded, and said seriously, this is what father has found out, and it has also been confirmed by the other 7th tier lords. At this, both Chu Hao and Zhou Heng had nothing else to say. Even 7th tiers had already confirmed this, so there was nothing to be doubted about this. Is there anything special about this dimension? Ling Han asked. Lin Xiaoyang glanced at Ling Han in approval. This brat would always ask questions that hit the nail on the head. He nodded, and said, in this dimension, there is a great amount of what we call heavenly venerable stone. Ling Han knew what heavenly venerable stone was, a unique stone that could be used to seal heavenly venerable seals. Apparently, aside from the mind of a heavenly venerate, only this object was capable of containing a heavenly venerable seal. However, by itself, this actually did not have much value. The heavenly venerable stones that we have obtained here actually originate from that primitive dimension. They have struggled free of the power of dimension, and appear in the void at certain timings before descending here. Lin Xiaoyang explained slowly. He paused, and then glanced at Ling Han and the others. By itself, heavenly venerable stone does not have much use. Aside from allowing the divine sense and techniques of heavenly venerable tier to pass through it, it could not be any more ordinary. However, Father has discovered that some ancient relics of that primitive dimension are nurtured inside these stones, like the young of the true dragon, supremely valuable medicines, primal chaos divine metal, and most important of all, there are also heavenly venerable seals. Hearing these words, the expressions of Ling Han and the others all changed at the same time. Then the value of this heavenly venerable stone would be astonishing, and would give rise to a full-scale competition over it. Then this primitive dimension will become an extremely important strategic location, Chu Hao said. Zhou Heng nodded. It will be attractive to all heavenly venerates, and it can be foreseen that great battles that will leave bodies scattered everywhere will take place continuously. Yet Ling Han said, the void is Hysteria's territory, and it can traverse the barriers between dimensions, a world where it reigns supreme. If we ventured to that primitive dimension inside the void, would we then be attacked by Hysteria? Chapter 2846, 2846 Heavenly Venerable Stone Mine. 2846 Heavenly Venerable Stone Mine. It was already not just once that Ling Han had encountered Hysteria in the void. He could be considered once bitten, twice shy. He had no choice but to keep up his guard. Lin Xiaoyang nodded. The void is indeed Hysteria's territory, but its main body is presently fighting Father and the others intensely, so it can only mobilize its doppelgangers. Thus, its battle prowess would only be at the 6th tier at most. We are completely able to match that. At present, there were around 106th tier heavenly venerates in the Flaming Frost realm in total. This was an astonishing power. It was definitely no problem for their combined forces to battle Hysteria's doppelgangers. Lin Xiaoyang and the others discussed the matter, while Ling Han listened from the sidelines. Though he was incredibly freakish, he clearly was not yet qualified to take part in this kind of discussion at present. In any case, he had made his decision. He was definitely going to this primitive dimension so he could obtain more heavenly venerable seals. It was not just the Lin Alliance. Every force was discussing this primitive dimension that had suddenly popped up. Everyone was doubtful. How could there possibly appear a dimension inside the void? It should be known that the void was filled completely with the fundamental power of the Genesis world. It was extremely violent, and only 3rd tier heavenly venerates and stronger could traverse the void. Otherwise, even 2nd tier heavenly venerates would be in danger. Yet now it was said that there was actually a dimension lying right within the void. How could this be believed? But while they did not believe it, various forces still set out respectively. Ling Han also brought the Empress and the others, with Lin Xiaoyang and other 6th tier heavenly venerates clearing the path as they headed towards that primitive dimension. The 6th tier was too strong. They discovered that dimension in the void merely over a dozen years later. Pu. They entered into this dimension, and when they passed through the dimensional barrier, it was like they had been squeezed into a bubble. Moreover, once they entered, they discovered that there was no energy of the void in this place. Instead, it appeared relatively peaceful. This kind of peace was only relatively speaking. There were still surges of an energy storm, but even the lowest level of Celestial King tier could tolerate this. Of course, this was the limit. Should an ascending origin tier enter this place, they would immediately be ripped into shreds by these wild waves of energy. Actually, it was also very dangerous for lower-level celestial kings to enter here. It was best that they had attained 3rd heaven and above. In that case, there would basically be no problems. It was precisely like that. This was a completely barren place, where there was no existence of living beings. When nurturing life, it definitely had to start from the weak before growing stronger, right? But living beings below the Celestial King tier could not survive here, so how was life supposed to come into being? Unless it was an existence that possessed Celestial King tier strength from birth. Ling Han and the others began to carry out large-scale construction here, building a fort that belonged to them. This was a wonderful time to stake a claim to territory. Otherwise, with the passing of time, the territory would have been divided long ago, and that was the most important resource here. It could be foreseen that carnage would begin not too long later. With the power of heavenly venerates, a colossal base which could withstand the energy storm here was built. In this manner, even people with low cultivation levels could be alive and kicking here. They just couldn't leave. However, as time passed, particular defensive tools capable of withstanding the energy storm here would definitely be developed. Ling Han naturally brought over all the heavenly venerates of Ling City here, and after the base was constructed, they began to venture out and explore, searching for heavenly venerable stone mines. In the Flaming Frost realm, there were pitifully small amounts of heavenly venerable stones, and they were all scattered here and there, but here there were whole mines of heavenly venerable stones, and could be mined on a large scale. Their luck was not too bad. They discovered a vein of ore which could be mined near their base. Why was there a need to construct a base? Naturally, it was so they could have ordinary people come here, and why was there a need for ordinary people to be here? This was because mining would need their labor. Couldn't heavenly venerates do it? Of course they could, but it would be too wasteful of their time. Though heavenly venerable stone did not have any other unique traits aside from being able to cut off heavenly venerable tiered divine sense, this thing was actually extremely fragile. If heavenly venerates were to forcefully mine them, the whole vein of ore would crumble with a bang. In this way, even divine metal would be shattered, what more celestial king tier great herbs and heavenly venerable seals. They would definitely be destroyed as well. Hence, there was a need for a great amount of manual labor, mining the stones carefully, just like how mortals would be mining. Now, various great forces were staking territorial claims. For the moment, they wouldn't come into conflict yet, but as territory continued to be claimed, what would come next would definitely be the eruption of great conflict over the remaining veins of ore. Stones were endlessly excavated and then delivered to Ling Han, Zhou Heng, and the others. They cut open these raw stones, obtaining the good stuff hidden within. However, what was disappointing was the fact that inside most of these stones, it was still stone. Of course, they had not come out with completely zero results. They had still mined out the seed of celestial medicine inside the stones, and it was a supremely valuable medicine at that. This was no ordinary celestial medicine, but had rather been tempered by the fundamental power of heaven and earth, and was greatly beneficial even to heavenly venerates. This kind of great herb definitely could not exist in the flaming frost realm, because celestial medicine belonged within the range of regulations, which could not be surpassed. What use would they have for heavenly venerates then? But the great herbs here had long since died. Then, through the boundless passage of time, they absorbed an ocean of fundamental power, turning into great herbs that would be effective even on heavenly venerates. This kind of discovery stunned even Ling Han, Zhou Heng, and the others. However, the production rate of this kind of great herb was too low. They had cut open tens of thousands of raw stones, but they had only obtained one such great herb. And in the case of heavenly venerable seals, the chances were even slimmer. Only 1 out of 1,000,000 would contain a heavenly venerable seal. They continued to accumulate experience, and discovered the good stuff they could obtain would increase the nearer they came to the core of the vein. The production rate of supremely valuable medicine and seals increased quite a few times over. This was speaking in relative terms. In truth, the chances were still pitifully low. Aside from supremely valuable medicines, there were also valuable things like divine metal or even devouring metal. It was as if this dimension was a massive treasure trove. Aside from feeling overjoyed, everyone also became more worried. At present, everyone was well off, and there was no shortage of mines, but when the mines they had control over were completely emptied out, just what kind of great war would erupt then? If Ling Han was honest with himself, even he thought that there was no way he would shrink back, and he was willing to contend with others until the end for the sake of mines. After several 100,000,000 years of peace, an industry quietly flourished, and that was the sale of heavenly venerable stone. That was because the chance of heavenly venerable stones producing valuable items was pitifully low, so some forces decided simply to take out their reserves and sell them. The greatest unique trait of this heavenly venerable stone was that it would not allow heavenly venerable tier divine sense to penetrate them. Hence, this kind of business was feasible. One could buy a heavenly venerable stone and bet on it to see if it would produce any valuable item. It was possible that one would spend an exorbitant amount of money only for it all to go to waste, but it was also possible that it could produce an astonishingly valuable item. In comparison to the ups and downs of cutting open the stones, selling the raw stones was more stable. Hence, more and more forces began to imitate them, and it actually became a massive market. Of course, star stones could not possibly buy the raw stones. Instead, one would have to use divine metal. Though it was practically useless to heavenly venerates, it was considered a kind of currency at the very least. After all, it was a necessity if one wanted to forge a heavenly Venerate tool. Gradually, even a field of study appeared, and that was study of the raw stones. What kind of raw stones could possibly produce treasures? Through studying the veined pattern and the time they had taken to form on the raw stone, it was indeed possible to increase the chances of obtaining treasures from the stones. This had extremely great implications. If it was possible to mine accurately with every turn, that would be equivalent to gathering an endless amount of wealth repeatedly, and one's own cultivation level and strength would soar exponentially. Under such circumstances, Ling Han also eagerly focused his energy to begin studying this field. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.